striving for fame, money, power. Have you ever wondered how strong their allure truly is? Are they worth sacrificing everything for, even friendships or loved ones? And even if the answer is yes, those fleeting things are not something that can be traded away in exchange for a sincere and loyal friendship. Then are you certain that the people you always trust, the people you wholeheartedly protect, will have the same answer? Tomodachi Game successfully builds psychological tension, sowing discomfort and distress through each stage of the game. It pushes readers through a journey of thought, deciphering unpredictable characters, especially the protagonist, Katagiri Yuichi. Will the characters ultimately be able to escape this intense game? And ultimately, will the question, how much is friendship worth, be answered satisfactorily? Let's join Loi Tam Tim Hugh to explore the intricate conspiracy stories behind Tomodachi Game. The protagonist of the manga is Katagiri Yuichi, a second-year high school student who lives a modest and solitary life. Despite facing financial difficulties, he still works part-time to support himself and always values friendship above all else. This stems from the teachings of his foster mother, who advised Yuichi that friends are more important than money. Therefore, he is the one among his friends who best understands the value of money. At the beginning of the story, we see Yuichi delivering newspapers to earn enough 70,000 yen for a school trip with his friends. Later in class, we are introduced to Yuichi's friend group, which will hereafter be referred to as Group C. Shibe Makoto, from a wealthy family, but with a naive, likable personality and a tendency to speak carelessly at times. Sawaraji Shiho, the serious class representative, carefully raised by her police officer father. Tenji Mikasa, the class genius and the primary mediator for all group issues. And Yutori Kokoroji, a kind girl who was bullied before befriending Shiho. While the protagonist was engrossed in thoughts of the group's beautiful friendship, the teacher shattered that dream by revealing the money collected for the school trip, totaling 2 million yen, had been stolen by someone in the class. Their friend Shiho stood up to apologize, saying that someone had taken it from her locker. 2 days later, Shiho and Makoto didn't come to school. Rumors that they had stolen money began to spread, and the remaining students started to feel uneasy. On the same day, Yuichi received a letter from Shiho, saying she had something important to tell him, and would wait at the school gate at 11 p.m. When he arrived at school, Yuichi saw all his friends were present because they had also received similar letters. Yuichi and his friends were then abducted and taken to a mysterious location, where they met Manabu, the game's mascot, and Team C was officially drawn into the vortex of the Tomodachi Game. After that, Manabu explained the rules of the game to the group. They could earn 2 million yen by completing a round to clear a debt of 20 million yen. What? 20 million yen? Yuichi angrily asked why they had to bear such a huge debt. Manabu explained that it was the debt of one person in the group. Tenji accused Manabu of taking them against their will, but that person only replied that they had voluntarily participated. Someone in the group had paid a participation fee of 2 million yen, 10% of the debt, to start the game. If they didn't participate, the indebted person would have to bear the entire amount. But if they participated, the debt would be divided equally among each person as 4 million yen, and moreover could be reduced through the game. Yuichi's friends said they were willing to help their friend by sharing the 4 million yen without question. But Yuichi didn't believe that. Manabu accused him of doubting his friends and asked him who he suspected the most, while also saying that Yuichi valued money more than friends. The main character countered, asserting that friends were more important than money. Thus, dismissing his doubts, Yuichi decided to participate in the friendship game. The whole group agreed to participate in the game and were taken to the location of the first round. Manabu introduced the rules of the Kakurusen game. If they won, the group would receive 2 million yen. But if they lost, the player with the highest debt would have to bear the debt for the entire group. What a cruel game. Each player was given a name tag showing their current debt, and they were not allowed to let others see this number. If they broke this rule, that person's debt would double. In this game, each person, in the order arranged by Manabu, would take turns drawing a question and reading it aloud for the entire group to hear. After that, all 5 people would have to place their index fingers on the coin and choose either the yes or no answer box. They only needed to answer one of the 5 questions correctly for victory to belong to the 5 members of Group C. However, the strange thing about this game was that the coin would always move according to the minority's choice. And only when all 5 people chose the same answer would the coin move according to the majority's choice. Furthermore, only the person whose turn it was to draw a question was allowed to speak. If the others were caught communicating, their debt would be doubled. After experiencing an extremely simple trial question, Yuichi gradually felt confident about the ease of this game. And that confidence was further reinforced when, during the first question round, Shibe Makoto had an extremely simple question. The highest mountain in Japan is Mount Fuji. Naturally, the answer should be yes. That's how it should be, right? But this is the friendship game after all. Just when Yuichi was most confident of a victory, the coin gradually moved towards no. Group C lost the first question. Yuichi simply thought at the time that someone in the group was severely lacking in basic knowledge. But after Shiho drew the second question, which was even easier than the first, 1 + 1 = 2. Surely this one couldn't be wrong, right? But no, it was still a no answer. The atmosphere among the group gradually grew tense. It seems that mutual suspicion has begun to brew within the group. It was Tenji's third turn, and still the answer was no. Doubt began to take root, replacing the initial trust and sweet, youthful school friendships. The group was gradually pushed into a corner, uncertain whether the 4 people standing before them were truly friends, or individuals who would plunge them into the abyss of debt. Now there were only 2 questions left, and if an invisible betrayer continued to wreak havoc, the entire group would be plunged into an abyss of 8 million yen in debt each. It was Yuichi's turn to ask a question, and the question he received was, "Ask your own question." Additionally, below was the text, "Move to the wrong answer to have your debt." The group owed a total of 20 million yen. Winning this round would earn 2 million, leaving them with 18 million yen in debt when divided. This meant each person would owe 3.6 million and could advance to the next round together. But if they chose the option written below, regardless of what happened to the group, the person who chose it would have their debt reduced to only 2 million yen and, above all, avoid the last place position. However, Yuichi suddenly thought that if the 3 people before him, Makoto, Shiho, and Tenji, had truly chosen to abandon their friends, and if he and his friend Kokoroji also chose similarly, then the game would fall into a dilemma where everyone had the same amount of debt. Yuichi suddenly wondered if Yutori's 5th ballot might not have the option to have the amount. He suddenly realized that his choice would also be a choice between pushing Yutori to the brink or continuing together. Pushing aside thoughts of his 3 friends who went before him, Yuichi asked an extremely easy question and was determined to answer yes. But unfortunately, it was no once again. What is this? Yuichi thought. Only the person asking the question who chooses no gets their debt reduced, not the others. What's going on? This proved that someone wanted to escape the game peacefully alone and push all the debt onto the loser. Yuichi realized one thing. No matter what the final question was, the betrayer would always answer the opposite of everyone else. Since the final coin still landed on no, Yuichi's debt was still halved, and the protagonist's concerns were proven correct. Yutori Kokoroji's question was not only completely different from the previous ones, but Yutori also had no option to have the debt amount. Yutori's question was, "Will we be friends forever from now on?" To save Yutori, Yuichi had to devise a strategy to manipulate the betrayer's psychology in order to turn the situation around. Yuichi spoke, accepting that his debt would double, returning to 4 million yen. Yuichi exposed that there was a betrayer in the group who wanted to force Yutori to bear all the debt. But he included a threat, stating that Yuichi's question card read, "All future debt will be borne by the person with the least debt at the end of the game." Upstairs, 2 Tomodachi Game staff members, while observing the game, explained that this was how Yuichi shifted the betrayer's mindset from a gleeful hunter, waiting for someone to sacrifice themselves, to becoming prey in Yuichi's hands, giving the betrayer a choice. Would they risk choosing no or go along with the team to advance to the next round? The protagonist then concluded, "I trust you all, and the answer will definitely be yes, right?" And in the end, the betrayer chose to believe that audacious lie, and the group successfully advanced to round 2 thanks to Yuichi's bold strategy to turn the situation around. Although they had successfully cleared the first stage, Yuichi still harbored feelings of unease. He had determined that there were indeed other ways to reduce his own debt, under the condition of betraying his friends. And the events of the first game also proved that there was a betrayer among the 5 people. To identify who the betrayer was, Yuichi made an excuse to stay behind and tried to re-examine the question cards. But actions like these had, of course, been carefully anticipated by the organization. When he flipped the card over, to his surprise, there was no text about the condition for having the money. It was written in a special ink, causing him to fall into the game organizer's trap. While he was distressed, Shiho appeared to comfort Yuichi and also said that she sensed a betrayer within the group. Surprisingly, he frankly told Shiho that he suspected Shiho herself was the betrayer due to her strange reactions in class. In her surprise and confusion, the class representative had to admit that she did so, because she suspected Yuichi himself was the betrayer and she had to do it to reassure herself. Because she liked Yuichi, she feared that if he were the betrayer, Shiho would become too distressed and unable to think clearly. Shiho swore that she would not betray Yuichi, no matter what happened. Outside, Mikasa Tenji had overheard everything, revealing a pensive expression, as the two discussed the strategies Yuichi was preparing for the upcoming game. Shibe Makoto and Kokoroji came over together. Makoto suspected the two of them were hiding some kind of scheme from the group. Surprisingly, despite hearing everything, Tenji stepped in to mediate, while also warning Yuichi not to hide anything. The group was taken to the school rooftop. Manabu, disguised as a teacher, officially introduced the second game. Slander Sugoroku. In a normal Sugoroku game, each player has the right to roll the dice and can move to the square corresponding to the number rolled. Whoever can reach the goal faster wins. But Slander Sugoroku is not that easy. Here, players can only win by betraying their friends. Specifically, they will be given cards. Each turn, players have the right to write down secrets of their friends or themselves on a slip and submit it to the organizers. There is no limit to the number of slanders. The slander statements will be read aloud for everyone to hear and voted on by anonymous spectators. The more terrible the secret, the higher the number of votes, and the person with the most votes will move the most steps and reach the goal faster. When they win, the entire team will receive 2 million yen, divided equally among all 5 people. However, the person who reaches the finish line first will be forced to participate in the next round of the Tomodachi Game. And Manabu-sensei also didn't forget to warn them that round 3 would be an extremely difficult game. As for the losers, each person will incur an additional 1 million yen in debt, along with the right to refuse participation in round 3 and return home. If no one speaks ill of another, they will all advance 1 step together. And if they continue like that until they reach the finish line, all 5 of them will win together and proceed to round 3. It sounds simple, but Manabu-sensei brought them back to reality because, simply put, it would be a disaster if the betrayer still wrote negative comments while everyone else committed to casting a blank vote. So what if the negative comment written on the ballot is a lie? If the lie is proven false, that person will incur a penalty fee and immediately be moved to the first position. After hearing the rules, Shiho turned around and said that they would reach the finish line together. Sounds simple, right? But if it were that simple, it wouldn't be the Tomodachi Game. In the first turn, the entire group submitted blank cards together. Thus, all 5 people advanced 1 space forward. However, in the first space, they incurred a penalty of 100,000 yen. In the second turn, another 500,000 yen was deducted. They had only moved 2 spaces, yet 600,000 yen had already been deducted from each person, which was even more than the amount they won in the first round. Another important rule was that all penalty fees from each space would be added to the player who reached the finish line first. Now, Group C realized that advancing to the finish line together was not a viable option. As usual, Shiho stood up to reassure the group. But by the third turn, the betrayer had begun to act. A single ballot was cast with the content: Sakuragi Shiho has feelings for Katagiri Yuichi and is simultaneously dating Mikasa Tenji. This secret was true because she had previously dated Tenji. At this point, the entire group erupted in an argument, especially Shibe Makoto, who believed that the three of them shouldn't have kept such matters from the group. Shiho explained that Tenji and she only dated to deceive their families, and their connection had ended when Tenji's father passed away 2 years prior. Manabu-sensei said that if they truly had no feelings for each other back then, it could be considered a lie. Unfortunately, Tenji confessed that he had once liked Shiho, and still did even now. After that, Tenji even lost his composure to the point of arguing with Makoto, accusing Makoto himself of writing the slanderous note. Before the two could come to blows, Yuichi had to intervene so the group could maintain their composure for the next round. However, this time, not one but 3 slanderous remarks appeared, including, Katagiri Yuichi once didn't shower for a week. Shibe Makoto bathed with his mother until 8th grade. Sakuragi Shiho once had cosmetic surgery. It seemed that during middle school, Sakuragi Shiho had indeed undergone cosmetic surgery, and their friend Tenji also knew about it. This secret was gradually pushing the group to the brink of collapse, as even Yutori couldn't bring herself to be cheerful with Shiho anymore. Even in the next round, things were even more serious. Kokoroji Yutori engaged in illicit activities for money during middle school. This secret truly shocked the entire group. Yutori panicked and collapsed to the ground. As for the others, while Makoto's words grew increasingly reckless, Tenji immediately lunged at his talkative friend. Yutori said that she only did it because she needed money and that things never went to the final step. She was still pure. Yuichi comforted her and whispered something into her ear. Remember this well. It will be important later. However, why did our protagonist forgive this secret so easily? Was it because Yuichi had a benevolent heart? Or did Yuichi actually possess secrets even more dreadful than this one? Watching the group descend into chaos, the traitor unconsciously chuckled. The person was revealed to be, surprisingly, Mikasa Tenji. Later, the truth about Shiho's cosmetic surgery was revealed to be due to an accident she had in middle school, not for the purpose of beauty enhancement. All the terrible secrets, and even the theft of 2 million yen, were aimed at eliminating everyone connected to Shiho so that he alone could win her over. In order to drive a wedge between Shiho and Yutori's friendship, Tenji was the one who revealed Yutori's secret. On the other hand, he whispered to Shiho that Yutori might have feelings for Yuichi, and that this was her way of attracting Yuichi's attention. In the next round, the traitor Tenji decided to write his own secret slip. Along with that, another slip appeared, specifically, Mikasa Tenji lied about his age. In reality, Tenji was a year older than the rest of the group. Sakuragi Shiho often wears boys' shorts. The problem here was that only Shiho knew the secret about Mikasa Tenji's age. Coupled with Yutori's previous resentment, the group's relationship and trust in Shiho severely diminished. As expected, after a series of malicious secrets aimed at her, Shiho was leading the Sugoroka race. At this point, she was granted the privilege of designating one person and exposing all of their secrets. Shibe Makoto confidently stepped forward, believing himself to be upright. Well, he was indeed upright, but his father was not. A series of secrets belonging to Commissioner Shibe Masakazu were revealed. Reacting quickly, Tenji once again made a move to isolate Makoto, undermining Group C from within once more. With this unexpected outcome, Makoto was penalized 5 steps and moved to 2nd place. Even more shocking, in the subsequent gossip round, a secret was written with the content. Shibe Makoto was responsible for someone's death. Mikasa Tenji was completely surprised. He hadn't written that slip. So who is it? Who's the culprit? Did Makoto really take a life? Tenji was completely unsure. While deep in thought, Tenji met Yuichi's icy gaze. What was he plotting? As for Makoto, he naturally claimed it was a false accusation. But Manabu-sensei said, there was no way to prove it was a false accusation. Of course, how could one prove whether or not they had committed such an act? As things grew tense, Yuichi stood up and declared, I found the betrayer among us. Tenji began to feel anxious. Of course, from the very first game, Yuichi had shown himself to be different from the rest of the group. He was no fool. Yuichi mentioned a way to win this game. Once he calmed down, Yuichi realized it was just like a regular Sugoroka game. Where there's subtraction, there's addition. And when everyone reaches the goal one by one, the total debt of everyone will return to what it was before the game started. To overcome the irreparable gap, Yuichi suggested that everyone, except the first player, must write Kajaguchi, negative comments. However, it had to be Kajaguchi about themselves. This meant that anyone who didn't write something negative about themselves would immediately be recognized as the betrayer. But unfortunately, contrary to Yuichi's calculations, this time the number of Kajaguchi written reached 10. The truth was, this plan had a flaw. Everyone could write more than one negative comment. Yuichi's plan would only work if each person could only write one negative comment. The protagonist had to bow his head and admit that he couldn't find the betrayer, and the group's friendship was already shattered. For the rest of the game, everything was terrible. No one looked at anyone, no one spoke to each other. By the 14th turn, Sakuragi Shiho was just one step away from the goal. No one could catch up to save her anymore. Tenji had defeated Yuichi. Or had he? At this moment, the two game observers suddenly realized there were 3 inconsistencies with Yuichi. At this moment, Yuichi stood up once again and said there was a way to find the betrayer. Remember, if an accusation is false, the player will be penalized by being moved to the first position, which is currently held by Shiho. Therefore, he suggested everyone write their name on the Kajaguchi and write, I am the one who registered for the friendship game. This way, everyone except the betrayer Tenji would become a liar. And of course, the organizers would also know that Tenji was specifically the one who registered for the friendship game. Therefore, all 4 people except Tenji would advance together to the 3rd round. Having no other choice, Tenji had to write that confessional Kajaguchi himself. However, he thought he could somehow justify it after writing. Surprisingly, when the results were announced after the round ended, only one Kajaguchi had been written, and it was none other than the betrayer Tenji's. What was Yuichi's plan? After Shiho's secret date was revealed, in the next round, Yuichi used the Kajaguchi slips themselves to inform Shiho that, in this round, she should reveal a secret about Yuichi that only the 2 of them knew. Specifically, that Yuichi once went a whole week without bathing. Yuichi was certain of this because he had only told Shiho. Thus, Yuichi had eliminated one person from the list of potential betrayers. However, one person could write multiple accusations in a round. How could Yuichi be sure that Shiho didn't write the remaining names? Tenji suddenly realized that the name tags containing his 3 friends' debts had disappeared at some point. That's right, Yuichi had asked them to give him their name tags. If someone saw another person's debt, that debt would be doubled. This was Yuichi's way of controlling his group of friends. As for Yutori, while comforting her after her involvement in adult entertainment was revealed, Yutori was also asked to do something similar to Shiho. Something only she and Shiho knew, accompanying Yutori's name tag, was, Shiho often wore boys' shorts. Therefore, only Tenji and Makoto remained. At this point, the reason Yuichi could guess who the betrayer was because from the very beginning of the game, someone as intelligent and calm as Tenji had consistently insisted that Makoto was the betrayer and even argued with him. Furthermore, the fact that Makoto was a loudmouth and no one would ever reveal any secrets to him. If Makoto were truly the one who signed up for the game, it would be highly disadvantageous for him to push himself into a game focused on uncovering and revealing secrets. Not to mention, Makoto confidently disclosed his own secret. Someone who was truly a betrayer would never be so confident. A discreet and extremely comprehensive elimination plan. Tenji was shocked by Yuichi's face, filled with malicious intent. However, even if the betrayer was found to be Tenji, there was nothing to prevent Sakuragi Shiho from having to advance to the 3rd round. Was that truly the case? Yuichi whispered something into Manabu-sensei's ear. Round 2 concluded. Manabu-sensei announced the result. Yuichi would advance to the third round alone. It turned out Yuichi had confirmed that he was the one who wrote the accusation claiming Shibe Makoto had taken a life. It was a lie. A more terrible truth was revealed. The one who had taken a life was not Makoto, but Katagiri Yuichi himself. In the past, he had caused the demise of 3 people. And Yuichi, leaving his friends behind, was determined to advance to the third game with a single purpose: to dismantle the Tomodachi Game administration. This truth gradually made the 3 remaining friends fear Yuichi. The group fell into an argument, while Yuichi merely stood by, deep in thought. Before he jumped down to continue the third game, Tenji stood up and admitted that he had lied about loving Shiho. To prove it, Tenji boldly rushed forward and kissed Yuichi in front of everyone. Afterward, both plunged into the darkness to proceed to the third round. In a dream, Yuichi saw his foster mother in the hospital, the one who had taught him that friends were more important than money. She always had friends willing to care for her during times of illness like this. Therefore, his foster mother advised Yuichi that there would be friends who would accept his bitter past and love him. Then, Yuichi's dream shifted to a man he called Sensei. In a daze, Yuichi suddenly awoke to Tenji's call, realizing they were in a cave. Manabu's voice boomed from the loudspeaker, providing them with a bottle of water to survive for 3 days. Here we can remember that Tenji is 1 year older than the other members of Group C. The truth is, this is Tenji's second time participating in the friendship game. The root cause of all Tenji's tragedies stems from Sawaraji Shiho. In middle school, Tenji had very close and exceptionally talented friends, just like himself. They were so brilliant that they could earn money together through stock investments. Then Shiho appeared, captivating 2 of Tenji's friends. This group of friends developed conflicts, and by the time they entered high school, the other 2 set a challenge based on the money the group had earned, solely for the purpose of whoever won getting to confess their feelings to Shiho. The money was nowhere to be found. Instead, one day Tenji's group was drawn into the Tomodachi Game with a debt of 10 million yen. Naturally, Tenji failed and had to bear a debt of 20 million yen alone. Enraged, he sought out a friend in the group and learned that the 10 million yen was intended for Shiho. Ignoring the game organizer's warnings, Tenji still informed his father about the 20 million yen debt and the Tomodachi organization. And then Tenji's father, Prosecutor Yutaka, never returned. He was believed to have taken his own life. Even though he had previously told Tenji that he would go to Shiho's father's house, Mr. Wataru, to discuss matters. All problems pointed to one source, but Tenji couldn't investigate anything further about Shiho. Now, re-examining the debt, we can understand that someone lied about the amount owed. When the calculated debt was 18.8 million yen, it is now only 10.8 million yen. This means one of the 3 friends who escaped the game had their debt reduced. Tenji's reason for coming here is to uncover the true nature of this organization and find the truth hidden behind Shiho. After some conversation, the 2 began to understand each other better. Yuichi vowed that he would clear round 3 at any cost. The bunker door opened, revealing the 3rd round, Friend Hide and Seek. This time it will be a PK match against another team, the members of Group K. The rules for the 3rd round will be slightly different. It's a team-based game that Yuichi won't be able to play alone. The specific rules are as follows. The 3rd game will take place in a vast forest. Each team will have 1 member hide, and the remaining members will search for the other team's hider. Naturally, Group C will face considerable disadvantages with only 2 people. In this game, the use of force against the opposing team is not permitted. Hiders are not allowed to leave their hiding spot until the game ends. In return, they are provided with a phone so they can call anyone, including their teammates. In the middle of the forest, food and water will be provided for everyone to use freely. However, since hiders must remain in their spots, the seekers will have to bring food and water to the hiders. Hiders also have the right to give up if they feel they've waited too long. But even then, the rules don't seem to capture the true spirit of a friendship game. Introducing the final rule of the game, Betrayal. Seekers will have the right to betray and switch to the opposing team. If the betrayer successfully wins, the betrayer will escape the game with their debt equally divided among the remaining members of the losing team. However, if the betrayal leads to the losing team, the betrayer will have to return to their original team, continue the round, and take on an additional share of the losing team's debt. Afterward, Team C was joined by Mrs. Maria, a support member for Tenji and Yuichi. She was a character planted by the organizers, who had been observing Team C since the first two games. The game began with Tenji as Team C's hider. Before they separated, Yuichi said that as long as he didn't press the give-up button, Yuichi would find a way to win. Keeping his promise to always trust Yuichi, Tenji swore he would never give up. But 3 days had passed, and Tenji hadn't seen a trace of Yuichi or even Maria. He was on the verge of perishing from hunger and thirst. Where was Yuichi? Was he tormenting Tenji for the betrayal in the first 2 rounds? No, I have to call Yuichi, Tenji thought. But no, it was Team K who answered, saying, "Give up." Yuichi didn't even bother looking for Team K's hider. But Yuichi wasn't planning to abandon Tenji. Team K's genius leader, who had successfully led Team K into this round, had realized that, in essence, this game wasn't about finding hiders. In this vast forest, even with Team K having 5 members, it would be impossible to find a hider that quickly. The key here was that the seekers had to bring food and water to the hiders. Team K's idea was to tail Yuichi's group. With their overwhelming numerical advantage and the physical prowess of a basketball player, it would be very difficult for Team C to shake off Team K's members to deliver essentials to Tenji. Therefore, Yuichi was forced to remain inactive in the food supply area with Group K. The next morning, Yuichi's series of schemes officially began its first step. He had Hayakataro, the girl-crazy member of Group K, follow Maria. He accidentally witnessed Maria undressing and letting her guard down. Seizing that opportunity, Yuichi intended to escape, but both were still being pursued. It seemed like this was the end for Yuichi's plan, but his deranged mind didn't stop there. He deliberately pushed Maria down a cliff, buying time from the 2 Group K members. Through this, he successfully shook them off and reinforced Tenji. It must be said, Tenji's 5 days of endurance were truly extraordinary. As for Yuichi, he had also successfully discerned the bond between Group K's members. And soon, it would be time for him to shatter that relationship. Yuichi used a honey trap to entice the kindest and most upright member of Group K, Hayakataro, to betray and join Group C. And the peacemaker, the leader, was not present to intervene in time. Yuichi's initial intention was for Hayakataro to reveal the leader's location. But it turned out that this was also part of Group K's genius's calculations. The truth was that Group K's true leader and genius was not the captain, but the small boy K. He was the one secretly behind controlling Group K's actions since the beginning of the game. K approached Maria. He already knew Maria was planted by the organizers from the start, and he just needed her to do one thing. K successfully obtained Tenji's location and Maria's betrayal. Was this the end for Group C? Just as K gleefully found Tenji and headed towards the results announcement area, victory belonged to Group C once again. What new scheme had that madman Yuichi devised now? While K was distracted by the information about Tenji's location, Yuichi called and threatened Group K's leader, Juzo, that he would harm Hayakataro, who was with Group C, until Juzo surrendered. Violence against teammates was permitted. While Juzo was still pondering about what was happening, Yuichi's threat escalated to the final step, breaking Hayakataro's finger. For a basketball player, a broken finger is tantamount to ending their career. Upon hearing the first crack, Juzo could no longer bear it and pressed the forfeit button. Yuichi had realized that the person responsible for the debt that forced Group K to participate in the Tomodachi Game was the leader. And K's idea to participate was to earn money to pay off Juzo's debt. Because of this, guilt led the leader to surrender unconditionally. Yuichi allowed Juzo to beat him relentlessly until they all realized Hayakataro had not been seriously harmed. Yuichi had broken his own finger to create the sound of breaking bones. In the end, Yuichi was still a person full of compassion and kindness. As for why both Kei, and later Yuichi, realized Maria was an organizer, it was because Maria easily followed Yuichi's extremely complex instructions, and she looked in perfect condition despite supposedly being starved for 3 days. Yuichi and Tenji spent 3 days in the basement with only 1 bottle of water. Maria alone, if she had been down there, couldn't have avoided looking worn out. On the contrary, when first introduced, Maria's clothes were neat, and she didn't have a single scratch. Yuichi and Tenji were released back to school to reunite with the group before the 4th round began. Upon returning to the classroom, the two found it in a desolate mess, with only Yutori remaining. It turned out that during the 5 people's disappearance, the entire class suspected Makoto and Shiho of conspiring to steal 2 million yen. Unable to explain, Makoto said, "I will pay 2 million yen to the whole class." However, his father's arrest might have been due to secrets exposed in the second game, and Shibe Makoto could no longer provide the 2 million yen for the class. He was isolated, bullied, and couldn't attend school anymore. Sawaraji Shiho also disappeared shortly after. Upon arriving at Makoto's house, the group was shocked to realize Shibe Makoto had been kidnapped, and Makoto's father, Masakazu, had met his end. Realizing the situation was more serious than anticipated, Yuichi immediately dismissed Yutori, stating she was not suited for such a precarious situation. The two returned to Yuichi's apartment and began to focus their suspicions on Shiho's father, Mr. Wataru. Clearly, since Tenji's father's demise, there were too many unanswered questions surrounding this police officer, especially his demeanor when Yuichi inquired about Shiho's whereabouts. But before he could rest or think further, Tenji received a message with an image showing Yutori had been kidnapped. With no other choice, Yuichi had to go to the meeting point to rescue Yutori. Just like in the first round, he was ambushed and taken to an abandoned building. There, he met a criminal gang led by Kuroki. This game involved physical challenges, where Yuichi and Yutori would have to choose who would endure Kuroki's severe ordeals. However, for Yutori, the severe ordeals would be milder compared to Yuichi. In the first and second instances, he volunteered to take the punishment and endured a painful procedure involving his nails in Yutori's place. But for the third time, Kuroki offered a choice: accept 3 deep cuts to his hand, or Yutori would be forced into a deeply compromising performance for the entire gang. Thinking of his classmate with a traumatic past, Yuichi decided to bear the ordeal himself. After this game, Yuichi's hand was almost severely injured. But as expected, an unpredictable individual like Yuichi wouldn't stop there. He immediately challenged Kuroki to a new game. If he won, he would give Kuroki 10 million yen. In return, if he lost, Yuichi would claim a forfeit of the gang leader's fingers. The game was simply rock, paper, scissors. If Kuroki threw paper, he would forfeit 5 fingers. Similarly, scissors meant 2 fingers and rock meant no loss. Yuichi also made sure to emphasize that his right hand was so severely injured that it was heavily bandaged, and he could only throw rock or paper. To draw Kuroki into this high-stakes game, Yuichi also promised to give each member of the gang an additional 1 million yen. After weighing the pros and cons, Kuroki realized that if he threw paper, he could at least draw or even win. To his surprise, Yuichi outsmarted the gang leader, pulling out 2 fingers from his intact left hand. Yes, it was scissors. At the same time, the Tomodachi Game organization stormed in to rescue Yuichi before he was cornered. It turned out Kuroki was just an imposter of the game and, of course, not part of the real organization. Yuichi recognized his unprofessionalism from the start and had Tenji contact the real organizers to apprehend him. But settling scores with the organization could wait. Yuichi picked up a knife, intending to inflict some injury on Kuroki. But he played Kuroki's own game. Yuichi said that if one of Kuroki's subordinates was willing to take their place, they would only lose 1 finger instead of 5, and Kuroki would also be safe. But who would be willing? Luckily for Kuroki, Yuichi fainted from blood loss. And originally, Yuichi had intended to play scissors from the start, only tricking Kuroki into playing paper. In return, Kuroki had revealed all his cowardice, foolishness, and willingness to betray his comrades through a simple game of rock, paper, scissors, and Yuichi successfully eliminated all of Kuroki's subordinates as a form of revenge. Returning to Yuichi's group, he was immediately rushed to the emergency room. As for Tenji, he was introduced to Group C's fourth game, Friend's Trial. Unfortunately, the main character turned out to be Shibe Makoto. As for Yutori, she also decided to participate in this game because she trusted Tenji and Yuichi, and she believed in the group's friendship. Entering this round, Tenji and Yutori's mission was simple: to defend Shibe Makoto. The way to defend Makoto was to retrieve the sum of 1,960,000 yen from 28 classmates. That was the money Tenji had taken to pay for the Tomodachi Game. And the group couldn't use outside money to compensate. It absolutely had to be money from the classmates. However, the difficulty didn't stop there. The core point that Judge Manabu mentioned in this game was the truths about Shibe Makoto. On the first day of the trial, the court invited Makoto's maid, who accused Shibe Makoto of assaulting Shiho. Specifically, when Shiho came to comfort Makoto, the maid overheard the young master whispering something to Shiho. Not only that, she also saw Shiho crying and running out of the room completely unclothed. Tenji began to ponder, feeling that the information was still incredibly jumbled. When he asked the maid, she said she truly detested the Shibe family. As for Makoto, although he was initially an innocent and kind child, when his parents divorced in middle school, instead of choosing his mother, whom he had always clung to throughout his childhood, Makoto's Kajaguchi mentioned he still shared baths with his mother even into middle school. But then Makoto chose to follow his father, who promised him a large sum of money. Furthermore, despite receiving such a substantial amount, all of that money had dwindled to zero by the time he reached high school. Today's trial concluded, while the friends Tenji and Yutori pondered the unresolved truth. On Yuichi's side, he met a member of the organizing committee. That person called Yuichi by a different name, Shiba Yuichi. He was not pleased to hear this name. At the same time, this person hinted to Yuichi about another betrayer, the true traitor in Group C. Returning to Tenji's group, to persuade the entire class to return the money, Tenji targeted Michiru, the most influential girl in the class at the moment. Unfortunately, the class was currently filled with harsh criticisms aimed at Makoto. It seemed the organizing committee had live-streamed the trial. Just like a real trial, all the classmates would know the information presented in court. On the second day, Shibe Makoto was accused by a middle school friend that Makoto had caused his sister's pregnancy, and that her family received a very large sum of money from Makoto to terminate the pregnancy. Didn't that coincide with the time Makoto's parents divorced? Did he abandon his mother to get money for that matter? Even Yutori began to waver upon hearing this news. Meanwhile, in the classroom, the entire class was practically seething with anger. Tenji could not intervene in this situation, otherwise he himself would be condemned. And above all, the discomfort in Tenji's heart had also gradually increased. On the third day, a credit officer arrived to announce that Shibe Makoto owed 500 million yen, and if Makoto were saved, the new debt would be transferred to the others. By this point, Tenji and Yutori could no longer remain calm. Tenji had run out of reasons and the will to help Makoto. While both were losing hope, Yuichi contacted them in time. As soon as he heard the 3 accusations, Yuichi pointed out that someone was lying and that Tenji should trust Makoto. On his part, Yuichi was confident that Tenji would realize who the liar was. While Tenji handled Makoto's situation, Yuichi sought out Kuroki and managed to extract information that a mysterious woman had asked him to impersonate the Tomodachi Game organization to harass Yuichi's group, and the money would be returned at a locker. Remember this well, this detail is important. During the trial, 2 days passed without Tenji's appearance, and he only showed up on the 6th day. Tenji requested that 3 witnesses be summoned to take an oath. At the same time, Tenji also declared that he had found the liar. Mrs. Maria, a member of the organizing committee, was very confident, as the liar had been coached with a flawless script, prepared by the organizing committee, so there was no way Tenji could figure it out through the testimonies of the 3 witnesses. However, surprisingly, he pointed out that the liar was the person who claimed to be Shibe Makoto's middle school friend. Tenji had also spent 2 days trying to find flaws in all 3 arguments, but couldn't find any information. But then he realized that even Yuichi had recognized the lie just from a phone call. The problem probably wasn't in the testimonies. This was because in Slander Sugoroku, Shibe Makoto had confidently declared that he had nothing to fear from being exposed. That must prove that his conscience was clear. But if Shibe Makoto were a despicable person who disregarded even a pregnancy and only used money to resolve everything, he wouldn't have been so confident. Tenji said that as a lawyer, he needed to trust his client no matter what. Furthermore, Shibe Makoto was known for speaking carelessly, capable of saying anything. And among the stories told by the loudmouthed Makoto, there was the truth that Shibe Makoto was a genuine virgin. Yuichi, with his injured right hand, appeared. To prevent Judge Manabu from acting deceptively, Yuichi proposed extending the trial period. True to the nature of a real trial, Yuichi requested a postponement to prove his friend's testimony was false. And if proven, the friend would be held accountable by law. Otherwise, the testimony should be dismissed. Faced with Yuichi's pressure, Judge Manabu decided to dismiss the testimony. The group successfully saved Makoto from a charge. This was not only a reason for the jury, their classmates, to change their decision but also for Tenji himself to find a reason. To continue his efforts to save his friend Makoto. That Shibe Makoto was not a terrible scoundrel. As for Yuichi, from the start, he had no intention of persuading his classmates. Instead, he aimed to cheat to recover the money. But if it were the 3 people close to Makoto and Shiho doing the persuading, how could the whole class trust them? Yuichi shifted his target to Michiru, who always liked Tenji. Yuichi's original plan was for Tenji to persuade and take advantage of Michiru. But then, during their meeting, due to his guilt over what he had done to Group C, Tenji couldn't lie to his friend Michiru. Instead, he decided to go to class alone, leaving Yutori and Yuichi behind. In front of the entire class, he admitted that he himself had stolen the money. Tenji knelt down, pleading with the class to save Makoto, and offered to drop out of school to compensate for the money. However, contrary to expectations, Michiru disagreed. She said it would be more appropriate to report the matter to the police. As the class's new leader, she chose the safety of the entire class over Tenji, whom she liked. Thus, Tenji's final plan had utterly failed. There was no way to recover the 1,960,000 yen anymore. On the day of the sentencing, neither Yuichi nor Yutori were present. Only Tenji came to see Makoto. Perhaps his fate had already been sealed, due to the 500 million yen debt. Judge Manabu decided that Shibe Makoto would still have to participate in the friendship game, but in a DLC version called Friendship Game, Adult Edition, where people who understand the value of money, like Katagiri Yuichi, compete against each other. For someone as naive as Shibe Makoto, there was no chance of survival. In their despair, Yuichi and Yutori unexpectedly appeared with 1,960,000 yen, just in time to save Shibe Makoto. It turned out that while Tenji was busy currying favor with the classmates, Yutori and Yuichi had set a trap for the homeroom teacher, intimidating him into recovering the 1,960,000 yen. At the same time, using the shady exchange money obtained from interrogating Kuroki, Yuichi gave that money to the homeroom teacher so he could replenish the class fund. It was truly killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Even Tenji's emotional display was part of Yuichi's plan. Because once Tenji had influenced the class's emotions, the homeroom teacher stepping forward to request the money would allow the entire class to shed their burden and confidently hand over the money to the teacher. This perfectly replicated Yuichi's philosophy, giving others an escape route after cornering them. In return, to repay the 500 million yen debt, the group of 4 would participate in the adult friendship game under Yuichi's leadership. However, at this point, the pain Yuichi had endured for the past few days caused him to pass out. When he woke up, his 3 friends were already by his side. Shibe Makoto also had the chance to recount the truth, that his father knew about this friendship game from the very beginning. Indeed, when Shibe Masakazu was apprehended, he was furious. Masakazu then learned that his son had become a victim of Officer Wataru's daughter. Upon hearing that his father might harm Shiho, Makoto couldn't hold back and plunged into an argument. In a fit of rage, Makoto's father blurted out, "You won't be able to survive in the friendship game." While Makoto was still confused and bewildered, he woke up the next morning with full evidence that he had harmed his father. As for Shiho, she was the one who informed her father about Mr. Masakazu's scandals. And the reason she ran out of the Shibe house was because during their argument, Makoto accidentally saw a large scar on Shiho's chest, something even Tenji was unaware of. The four decided that despite still harboring suspicion towards Shiho, the group would stick together to meet Shiho and get to the bottom of things. Currently, there are too many irregularities, but the group will still have to proceed to the next round, the adult friendship game. Yuichi believes that by advancing further, the four of them will find the answers to their lingering questions. Entering the castle with the other contestants of this new game, the four decided to split into two groups, Yuichi Makoto and Tenji Yutori. After a sumptuous banquet, everyone was taken to their bedrooms, and upon waking up, what a surprise! Yuichi and Shibe found themselves in prison uniforms. Beside them were very familiar names such as the genius boy K, the underworld figure Kuroki, Shibe's maid Saori, and Yamashita, someone Yuichi had encountered in the past. It seems the first game of the adult version of Tomodachi Game has officially commenced. The rules of Friendship Prison are as follows. The game will end when a player completes their 20-year sentence. However, players can also end their sentence and complete the game immediately by setting up all 120,000 domino pieces. Violence is prohibited, and violators will be fined an additional 100 million yen in debt, along with being eliminated from the game. There is a way to escape from prison. There is a key that opens the back gate, and the key holder can escape whenever there are no guards around. Each key only allows one person to escape. If a player suspects someone is trying to escape, they can use the secret denunciation system. Players will vote each night, and the person who receives more than half of the total votes will be expelled the following morning. All players who complete the game in the normal way will receive 10 million yen each. Those who are expelled will be considered as not completing the game and will have an additional 100 million yen added to their debt. Those who successfully escape will receive a reward of 200 million yen. When an escape is confirmed, each remaining prisoner will have an additional 400 million yen added to their debt. Furthermore, the group of 12 prisoners will be divided into two groups of 6. What's the purpose? Only heaven knows. But in the other group of 6, coincidentally, there were many members who had previously confronted Yuichi. However, arranging 120,000 dominoes was inherently a feasible task. According to calculations, it would only take 10 days to complete. Therefore, it was simply a matter of completing the task, and there was no reason to betray each other. The group of 12 was truly determined, and on the very first day they made excellent progress. However, the two groups of 6 didn't communicate very well. Perhaps the issues, especially with Yuichi, had not been thoroughly resolved. During dinner, the petite girl Fudo suggested to Yuichi's group that if they just cooperated, everyone could clear this game. That would be great, Yuichi thought. But the problem is, how long until someone doesn't think that way? The answer came the very next morning when all the dominoes suddenly toppled. Yuichi suddenly realized this game was extremely disadvantageous for him. Yuichi stepped forward to address the situation, claiming it was just an accident, and there was no reason for a player to sabotage the domino chain the whole group had worked to build. The whole group had no choice but to start over again. However, this time there was friction. The old director Genzo, due to his experience working in a factory, quickly arranged many beautiful and straight dominoes. But the prisoner Ashiroda, who had been sullen and uncommunicative since the start of the game, started to be lazy and work inefficiently. The two began to argue. And then that very evening, the first spark of discord was ignited when Genzo proposed expelling Ashiroda on the grounds that he was unsuitable for this teamwork. However, expulsion required a majority vote. Currently, 7 votes were needed, but Yuichi's group, not counting Ashiroda, would only have 5 votes. Genzo intended the next morning to try and persuade the remaining group members to remove Ashirota. Realizing the disadvantageous situation, Yuichi tried to prevent this, but failed. The next morning, surprisingly, it was Genzo who was expelled. And the most disadvantageous situation had befallen Yuichi. Specifically, Yuichi's group had now become the minority, and with the advantage in numbers, the opposing group, led by the genius K and the gangster Kuroki, could eliminate anyone on Yuichi's side at any time. Naturally, Yuichi, who had the most grievances with them, would be the primary target. Thus, Yuichi's group would have to serve and obey K's group. Yuichi had to remain inactive and endure insults and attacks from Kuroki. However, by the next morning, everything unexpectedly changed. Kenji Yamashita, a member of K's group, was unexpectedly expelled. Kuroki realized that there was a traitor in K's group, and with this situation, K's group suddenly found themselves at a disadvantage. Worse, a traitor was still present within the group. Yuichi gradually revealed a smug and malicious expression whenever he wanted to utterly defeat someone. But K seemed unwilling to give up, engaging in a verbal confrontation with Yuichi. It seemed that K's team leader in the hide-and-seek game had encountered some problem, forcing K to compete in this round. Therefore, K shared with Kuroki that he harbored an immeasurable hatred for Yuichi. Based on their shared concern about Yuichi, K and Kuroki formed an alliance to confront the main character together. Returning to the domino stacking task, after one morning, the domino rows were destroyed again. Feeling utterly helpless, Yuichi requested a set of tools to create partitions between the domino rows to prevent a chain collapse. But by the next morning, everything was back to square one. Thus, it was certain that someone had intentionally toppled the dominoes. The only one who would benefit was very likely the person holding the key to escape this bizarre game. Just then, the warden Manabu announced that he would be taking a day off. Therefore, the group realized it would be very dangerous in this situation if someone managed to escape. Quite clearly, no one admitted to having the key. It seemed like a game of werewolf. Yuichi dismissed that thought because the key was something that could be found. Therefore, they first needed to search all the players. However, there was an older woman in the group named Mizutani Keiko who refused to cooperate, adamantly refusing to be searched, even by another woman. Surprisingly, she agreed when the one doing the searching was the handsome Tanida Ryusei. This was also the friendly young man who had chatted with Makoto at the welcome party before the game. After the check, Ryusei also confirmed that Ms. Keiko did not have the key on her person. However, Ryusei also made an accusation against Ashirota, that he was the one who toppled the domino chain. With testimony from the maid Saori, Ashirota was expelled the following morning. This was the price Ashirota had to pay for his indifferent and apathetic attitude during the early stages of the game. Putting Ashirota's matter aside, today the group succeeded in ensuring no one escaped or destroyed the domino rows. Before they could even celebrate, Yuichi saw a letter left on the floor. Someone claimed to be the key holder, and he would spare everyone with the commitment that each person would return 90 million yen of their prize money after winning the game. Otherwise, he would escape in the next round. This meant that, excluding the letter writer who would hold 820 million yen, the remaining players would only keep 10 million yen. Despite this unreasonable condition, surprisingly, among the 9 remaining players, 5 chose to compromise, including Ryusei and Shibe. They left behind Yuichi, Kei, and Kuroki, the 3 most dangerous individuals, along with the girl Fudo. They chose not to agree, accompanied by a threat to expel them one by one, or for the 3 of them to collectively submit a 90 million yen pledge. Naturally, ignoring the threats, the 3 stubborn ones absolutely refused to surrender. After another morning's failure to unite everyone, it seemed the key-holding faction had begun their operations. The first to reveal herself was Keiko, and of course, the one who had leverage over Keiko was Tanida Ryusei, the professional swindler who had won the friendship game twice. On the opposing side, Yuichi's group had also identified a suspect, but both sides still needed to remain inactive, because one wrong move could lead to immediate expulsion. After another morning, this time no one was expelled. Ryusei, despite facing accusations of being the wolf from Yuichi's side, stood firm by gaining Shibe's trust. At this point, the strategy of the two-time Tomodachi Game winner was revealed. Ryusei's true partner was not Keiko, but the maid Saori. As they were solidifying their alliance, Kei appeared with a pledge in hand, which also served as confirmation of his betrayal of Kuroki and Yuichi. By that morning, Ryusei unexpectedly also received a pledge from Yuichi. This led Ryusei to conclude that Yuichi was the next key holder. That very evening, he quickly pushed forward a plan to eliminate Yuichi. Little did he know it was all part of the protagonist's calculations. The maid Saori, surprisingly, had been colluding with Yuichi from the very beginning. Using a honey trap, she pretended that Ryusei was assaulting her. Afterwards, when she called out for help from Shibe Makoto and the bespectacled youth, Ryusei was subjected to a flurry of blows from both righteous young men. Saori also took the opportunity to slap Ryusei. As for Keiko, after realizing she had been exploited, she also struck the swindler with a chair. Thus, the four individuals, Makoto, the bespectacled youth, Keiko, and Saori, were expelled for using violence. As for Ryusei, having unexpectedly become the minority, he also had to leave the game after being expelled by Yuichi. Notably, during the party, Yuichi had understood that an innocent lamb like Shibe Makoto could be an easy target for professional swindlers. Therefore, he asked Makoto to inform him about the first person who tried to approach him and strike up a conversation. That person was Tanida Ryusei. From the very beginning, Yuichi already had a plan to eliminate this dangerous element. With these developments, the prison now only had 4 players: Kuroki, Kei, Yuichi, and Fudo. Kei and Kuroki remained very confident in eliminating Yuichi, because Fudo was Kuroki's ex-lover. Both conspired to eliminate Yuichi just before the 4 of them could complete the domino chain, so that Yuichi would experience the most bitter feeling of defeat. Before the expulsion took place, Fudo unexpectedly arranged to meet Kuroki to propose not expelling Yuichi. She gave the reason that she was pregnant and hoped Kuroki would not deceive anyone else. Quite surprisingly, Kuroki happily agreed, saying that his resentment towards Yuichi had disappeared during their time working together. Kuroki even managed to convince Kei to let Yuichi off the hook. But things were not that simple. A trickster remains a trickster. Kuroki was actually plotting to escape alone with the key he held in his hand. But before he could manage to leave, he was discovered by Fudo. But what did it matter? He just needed to step out the door, and it would be over, right? Unfortunately, the moment the game ended had already occurred a long time ago. The winners are Katagiri Yuichi and Shinomiya Kei. Huh? There are that many keys? Kuroki asked Manabu. From Ryusei's pocket, the Four Eyes guy, Keiko, Ashiroda, and even Fudo, each had a key on them. This was entirely Yuichi's scheme. In reality, the 2 real keys had been given to Kei and Yuichi from the start of the game. The 2 of them had been identified as wolves right before the game began. But those other keys were fabricated by Yuichi using the domino-stopping kit he borrowed from the organizers at the beginning of the game, using it to manipulate and deceive those who picked them up into believing they were real keys. Yuichi and Kei successfully led everyone by the nose, following their plan. The moment Yuichi gloated about eliminating Kuroki's people, Kei realized that Yuichi was doing something pointless and unnecessary by provoking and boasting. Recognizing the issue, Kei stepped forward and argued with Yuichi, going against the 2 geniuses' own principle of doing nothing pointless. That marked the moment they recognized each other and began their later wild schemes. But Yuichi still left a lifeline for everyone in the game. That was because if someone was expelled from the game, they would only be penalized 100 million yen. But if the prisoner escaped, those who remained would be penalized 400 million yen. Originally, from the very beginning, Yuichi still wanted to complete the task together. But as soon as he realized they couldn't agree and work collaboratively, Yuichi thought about saving as many people as possible except for Kuroki. This individual had been warned by Fudo many times, but consistently ignored the warnings and even focused solely on his own personal gain. Therefore, Yuichi felt he didn't deserve assistance. Yuichi used 100 million yen to help Shibe escape, while Kei also shared 100 million with the maid, Saori. At the end of the game, Yuichi and Makoto met Tenji and Yutori again. It seemed both had cleared the stage smoothly. Additionally, Yuichi brought along an attachment in Kei, who promised to be a crucial piece in Group C's next round. After meeting their guide, they learned that they would face opponents far more dangerous than any Group C had encountered before. In the game administration room, Saoraji Shiho appeared in a black suit, characteristic of the executive committee members. Yuichi's group was brought aboard the cruise ship Glory. Here, Yuichi's group met Captain Manabu, who introduced them to a magnificent casino on board. And the theme of this game would be gambling. The battle on this ship would be round 1. Before round 2 began at Golden Armor Island, Kanagashima. Before Yuichi's team, 3 other groups had already boarded the ship, including a Yakuza gang, a group of followers from a mysterious cult, and a bad boy accompanied by a beautiful harem. However, Yuichi's group noticed the appearance of a familiar figure, Saoraji Shiho. Before they could approach Shiho, the group was drawn into the game and forced to stay and listen to the rules. Shiho had vanished sometime during this. Without giving Yuichi a chance to think, Manabu immediately introduced the rules of friendship gamble. Players had until they reached their destination, Kanagashima, to gamble and increase their savings. Only those who met the conditions could proceed to the second half of the game. Before the game began, the monetary value of each player would be assessed. Each team could choose to sell teammates to earn gambling money, and those sold teammates would not participate in the gambling. By paying the full amount for a sold teammate before the game ended, you could buy them back. Each player also had to pay a 10 million yen boarding fee after the game concluded and before proceeding to round 2. Failure to pay would result in a 100 million yen penalty. Money could be used for gambling as well as shopping on the ship. Everyone could track the team's cash flow via the TV in the casino. Having more money was an advantage in the second part of the game. Players could decide on or create their own games to gamble and win. To facilitate gambling, it was necessary to choose someone who was both highly valued and useless in the game. Each person's value would be determined based on appearance, intellect, and background. Therefore, being smarter didn't necessarily mean a higher valuation. For example, Yuichi's group was valued as follows. Kokoroji Yutori, 200 million yen. Shibe Makoto, 80 million yen. Shinomiya Kei, 40 million yen. Mikasa Tenji, 10 million yen. Katagiri Yuichi, 0 yen. After some discussion, the group agreed to use Makoto's value as capital, bringing in 80 million yen. After the introductions, the 4 teams began their full-scale offensive. All 4 leaders, including Yuichi, would kick things off with a game of poker. However, Yuichi was inherently terrible at betting. It wasn't that he had never gambled before, but rather, as Sensei had taught him, Yuichi would never contend with a madman in a gambler's contest, where his psychological tactics would be completely ineffective. Despite knowing this, Yuichi suffered a crushing defeat and lost all 80 million yen in an instant. With no other choice, Shinomiya Kei had to step in. Yuichi left the casino in disappointment, while the group was forced to use Tenji's value as collateral to get 10 million yen for Kei to continue playing. Kei realized that the underworld boss, Kaido, had read Yuichi through Yutori's reactions. Taking a daring, risky move, he successfully brought in 160 million yen. In a moment of intense focus, Yuichi suddenly reappeared, warning Kei that if he continued to play, he would surely lose. Turning over Kamashiro's cards, the leader of the mysterious cult, Kei realized he had a royal flush all along, and Kei's winning hand was due to the old man intentionally letting him win. Yuichi couldn't explain this absurdity either, which was why he detested gambling. Recalling Sensei's teachings, Yuichi envisioned a guaranteed winning strategy he had been taught. But in Yuichi's eyes now was only the sight of his teacher lying in a pool of blood with a knife in his hand. Turned out to be a nightmare. Waking up, Yuichi's group felt they needed to buy something to eat, but all the essential supplies had been bought by the other 3 groups yesterday. The group realized that at this rate, they would starve before reaching Kanegashima Island. Yutori, feeling confused and useless to her teammates, was approached by Kamishiro. Before he could do anything to her, Kei quickly intervened and stopped Kamishiro. However, before leaving, he managed to reveal a secret about Shiba Taizen to Yutori, saying it would help her in her relationship with Yuichi. Upon hearing that name, Yuichi immediately lost his composure. It seemed that was the sensei Yuichi was often tormented by. But Yutori reassured him, saying he only did it to protect Katagiri Yuichi, his adoptive mother. Yuichi immediately became vulnerable and buried his face in Yutori's chest. Thus, Kamishiro successfully manipulated Kokoroji and proposed an alliance with Yuichi's group. The target this time was food from Mishima, the charming ladies' man. Surprisingly, with Kamishiro's help, Yutori won and brought back food for Yuichi's group. In another development, in the waiting room for those who were sold, Sawaraji Shiho appeared in the guise of an executive board member. Tenji couldn't keep his composure and rushed to question Shiho about his father's demise. Shiho could only avoid Tenji's furious gaze. Just then, another person in charge stepped in and separated Shiho. Before leaving, Shiho said she had to be there because she had discovered who the real betrayer was, who could truly manipulate Group C. As for Shinomiya Kei, after eating his fill, he went out for a walk and witnessed Mishima assaulting a member of his group. His heroic spirit surged, and he ran to intervene, only to receive a knife wound from Mishima's assaulted female companion. He woke up 2 days later, and Yutori had somehow become Mishima's captive. He had bought all the cameras in the hallway area where Kei was attacked, and claimed that Kei had participated in a knife game wager with him and lost. Even Kei's ally, Old Man Kamishiro, didn't side with him. Even Yutori had been brainwashed by him. Unable to prove anything, Kei had no choice but to participate in the game himself for a chance to win Yutori back. However, Kei's intention to aim for a low blow was anticipated by Mishima, and Kei was injured on his dominant right hand. What followed was a series of torment from Mishima. But what a surprise, right? In a frenzy, Mishima suddenly realized he had lost a finger to a piercing blow. Before he could recover, he took another punch from Kei's left hand and was knocked out cold. It turned out Kei had realized Mishima might play dirty, so he had a knife ready to adapt. Moreover, Kei was ambidextrous. Enduring the severe assault was merely a decoy for the finishing blow. Yuichi appeared from behind, saying he wanted to play around with Mishima. Mishima, of course, refused. Suddenly, the entire ship lost power, and Mishima realized Yuichi's knife was already at his throat. Luckily for him, power returned to the ship. Seizing the opportunity, the protagonist announced that, from now on, to avoid incidents like Mishima's, a betting contract clearly defining the rules of play and the stakes would be required, with any party violating it being fined 1 billion yen. Fine, signing it won't hurt. The other 3 groups all agreed. Unbeknownst to them, the first domino in Yuichi's plan had been set in motion. For Yuichi, he had determined that tomorrow's opponent must be Kamishiro. In his room, Yuichi had already discussed with Yutori how to win tomorrow's match. But Yutori secretly met Kamishiro in the dark of night, proving she was completely brainwashed. The next morning, the battle between Kamishiro and Yuichi officially began. This time, the game would be old maid. Players must draw cards from the person next to them. Drawing a pair allows them to discard the cards. Discarding all cards means reaching the goal. The loser will be the one left with the single, unmatched joker card. Also, anyone caught cheating will be fined 1 billion yen. That's basically it. This game will be played by 4 people, including Kamishiro and a follower named Shinji. On Yuichi's side, there's also an ally named Yutori. However, in all 3 rounds, Yutori was the loser. In this situation, it couldn't have been any other way because Yutori had been brainwashed, and when Kamishiro was the one drawing cards for Yutori, he absolutely couldn't draw the joker card. After 3 rounds, Yuichi's team only had 10 million yen left. In the final turn, Yuichi unexpectedly proposed a bet worth 500 million yen. with 250 million borrowed from the gangster boss Kaido, while the two were playing old maid. Kaido had successfully emptied Mishima's pockets, so this 250 million yen was entirely feasible. Looking at Yutori's expression, she was probably also surprised by this situation. Under Yuichi's direction, Shinji and Yutori ran out of cards, leaving a 1v1 battle between Kamishiro and Yuichi. Each person also only had 2 cards left. Since Yuichi was very bad at betting, he devised a way to win the game. Yuichi asked Kaido to shuffle the 2 cards and place them on the table, stating that he himself didn't know their positions. Kamishiro had to use his divine eye ability to find where the Joker card was. Under immense pressure from Yuichi, Kamishiro gradually revealed his ordinary nature, and his ability was just a deception. While confused, the cult leader suddenly noticed a scratch on the corner of one card. This could be a signal from Yuichi to avoid the Joker. While thinking, Kamishiro caught a signal from Yutori. It seemed she knew something. Through a subtle hint, Yutori implicitly indicated that the card without the scratch was the correct card. Just waiting for that, Kamishiro quickly grabbed the card only to realize it was a Joker. Had Yutori betrayed Kamishiro? No, in fact, Yuichi already knew Yutori had been brainwashed. Believing he couldn't convince Yutori without exposing Kamishiro's deception, Yuichi decided he had to reveal this fraudulent cult leader. During the evening discussion about the game plan, he clearly explained the mark on the Joker card, saying he would make a scratch on the Joker so Yutori could easily recognize it. But in the 4th round, she deliberately took the Joker before Yuichi gave the signal. Realizing the brainwashing, he set up Kaido's card-switching trick. In reality, he had prepared 2 cards identical to the 2 he held. The only difference was that the scratched card had now been swapped, and was no longer the Joker. Yutori, still believing the marked card was the Joker, informed Kamishiro, and he fell into Yuichi's trap. In a fit of rage, he rushed forward to question Yutori, inadvertently revealing that he had cheated through Yutori. Not wanting to compensate 1 billion yen, he had no choice but to concede defeat to Yuichi's group and accept a loss of 500 million yen. In this game of old maid, Yuichi was actually completely superior. By controlling Yutori, Yuichi also controlled and manipulated Kamishiro's mind, making him believe Yutori's words and lose the necessary clear thinking in the final card draw. However, if one were to talk about the opponents Yuichi most hesitated to face, it would be the reckless gamblers willing to bet everything. Ultimately, Yuichi's final opponent, whom he described as a wild beast, was none other than the daughter of boss Kaido, Sat-1. Kaido helped Yuichi's group without any ulterior motive, also to allow him to compete against his daughter, Sat-1, because Kaido believed that only Yuichi was worthy of being his daughter's opponent. Kaido Sat-1 was a true gambler, someone willing to disregard her own life, leaving everything to chance. For a deceiver with psychological manipulation abilities like Yuichi, he could never predict people like that. Yuichi cited fatigue, saying he wanted the match to take place tomorrow. But in return, Kaido Sat-1 demanded that if the match were to happen tomorrow, Yuichi would have to bet the entire group's money, 800 million yen. A life-or-death match. Yuichi was very concerned about Satone's abilities and didn't want to confront her directly. He planned to prepare a strategy to win. But Mishima also warned that Satone's extraordinary intuition would defeat any trick no matter how small. Afterward, Yuichi met Mizuse Maria again, saying he had a few things he wanted to buy from her. Yuichi's group's preparations were now complete. The next morning, instead of intense mind games, Yuichi requested only one game, a coin toss. Sat-1 only needed to guess which of Yuichi's hands caught the coin to win. In the betting contract, Sat-1 had included a clause stating that everyone must wager their most important possession. For Yuichi's group, it was obviously the 800 million yen that was everything. But Yuichi didn't believe that was the case for Sat-1. She was just a young girl, not yet able to truly grasp the value of money. To her, 800 million was just a number. Yuichi felt that this was not at all proportionate. Everyone also realized that 30 million yen had been deducted from Yuichi's group's money. Could this be something Yuichi had paid for? Yuichi learned that Kaido was actually Satone's adoptive father, and Satone's most important possession wasn't money, but her adoptive father, Kaido himself. Therefore, Yuichi demanded that Sat-1 wager Kaido's life. Outside, even Mishima had to marvel at Yuichi's cruelty. But this was necessary to corner Sat-1. In response, Kaido readily accepted, saying he always trusted Sat-1. Satone's confidence and the intuition in her eyes flared up again. Thus, Yuichi's intention for Sat-1 to forfeit the match failed. He was forced to proceed with the game despite many disadvantages. Then, when the coin was tossed, through a series of hand movements, anyone could clearly see that the coin was in the right hand, or was it another trick from Yuichi? Could Yuichi really make a mistake at this decisive moment? Although she hesitated slightly, Satone's intuition still told her to choose the right hand, and it was correct. In the operations office, Sauragi Shiho believed Yuichi still had an ace up his sleeve, and he would soon laugh loudly and turn the situation around as he had before. But in reality, there was no comeback here. This was a clear defeat for Yuichi. No trick could be used to turn the tables. Even Tsukino, the short-haired staff member who placed her trust in Yuichi, couldn't say anything more until Yuichi offered to sell a person to borrow more money. He even knelt down to apologize to the cult leader, but it wouldn't be that easy. The cult leader simply wanted to humiliate Yuichi. Enraged, he threatened to throw the old man into the sea. Just then, Mizus Maria stepped forward, announcing that the ship had docked at Kanagashima Island, meaning the game was over. However, the middle-aged man on the operations team realized something. Why did she say that? Tsukino, who had been silent since the start of the game, said that Yuichi's sure-win strategy had already been activated. On Yuichi's side, despite looking like he was crying, he revealed a sinister smile, signaling a spectacular turnaround. After successfully using the money to redeem his team members, Kaido discovered that, in their idle moments, his 3 teammates and the sold-off members of other teams had participated in a bet. The organizer was Yuichi. Then, Yuichi stood up and handed Manabu a stack of papers. In just a moment, the amount on the TV changed. Yuichi alone possessed 1.325 billion yen. What had happened? When did Yuichi's scheme begin? The exact moment was right after the first poker game, when the 3 teams were most off guard with Yuichi. Taking advantage of his 0 yen value, he could freely enter and exit the cell without showing any fluctuations in the group's money on the TV. He set up a betting contract to accurately predict the rankings from 1st to 4th for all 4 teams. However, the key lay in the clause. The winner would receive all the money from the bettor at that time. The prisoners thought that the bettor here referred only to them. But in the clause Yuichi established after the match with Mishima, there was a provision that anyone in the team who signed it would make it binding on the entire team. Thus, Yuichi successfully drew all 3 teams into the ranking betting game, without any of the team leaders knowing. Everyone was gradually drawn into Yuichi's plan without realizing it. In truth, Yuichi genuinely wanted to defeat Sat-1, because without the desire to win, Satone's keen intuition would detect something amiss. But if he couldn't win, this would be his insurance. His secret code during the argument with Kamishiro was actually for Mizus Maria, whom he had secretly hired for 30 million yen, to announce the game's end. That's why the person in charge was shocked by those words, because in reality, the game hadn't stopped, but was merely a deception by Yuichi to make Kaido's group drop their guard and fall into a trap. This was Yuichi's secret weapon. A 2-pronged bet, ensuring victory on both fronts. Yuichi's targets in this strategy were also extremely clear. They were the members who were sold, those who were sold first because they found no advantage in the struggle. These were the easy prey Yuichi could readily exploit, like a snake entering a chicken coop. At the same time, the ship docked at Kanagashima Island, marking the second round of the game, titled the Friend Eliminating Game. Having run out of funds, the 3 teams couldn't disembark to proceed to round 2. Yuichi offered to pay for their disembarkation, on the condition of absolute obedience in the next round. For Mishima's group, with 2 members remaining, Yuichi paid 20 million yen for them to disembark. Kaido decided to sell 3 of his subordinates, telling them to disembark with Satone's daughter. Although not required to obey Yuichi, Kaido still affirmed he would cooperate with Yuichi. When Kamishiro realized he was forced to obey or be targeted by all 3 leaders, he intended to sell off his follower Shinji, but then met the young follower's knife-sharp gaze. Mysteriously, Kamishiro suddenly fainted. Left with no choice, Shinji sold him for 800 million yen and proceeded to the next round alone. Naturally, he still only maintained a cooperative relationship with Yuichi. Before disembarking, Shinomiya Kei was pulled away by an unfamiliar hand. It turned out to be Shiho, who had been on the ship from the start. She whispered into Kei's ear the identity of the betrayer in Yuichi's group. It seemed this was extremely shocking information, to the point Kei couldn't have anticipated it. Eventually, Kei joined the group and everyone was led into an abandoned building complex, where Manabu and his 2 assistants appeared once more, bringing with them an army of mysterious figures in black coats. This game would be called the Friend Elimination Game. In this game, the figures in black coats are individuals burdened with immense debt and are referred to as zombies, or money zombies. These money zombies will try to capture the players to escape their debts. If players can evade the zombies until the game ends, they will win. The game has no time limit and ends when only 5 players remain on the field. Each player is equipped with a gun. The guns fire multicolored paintballs. Each paintball will have different effects and values. Yellow paintballs cost 1 million yen each and immobilize a zombie for 10 seconds. Red paintballs cost 100 million yen each and neutralize a zombie so they can no longer move. If a player is captured by a money zombie, the Tomodachi Game administration will confiscate all their money, including any future earnings. All players must wear black collars around their necks. The collars have special functions that will be revealed later. Additionally, there are opportunities and events to earn money in the game. Any money not used in the game, if won, will belong to the player. Before the game began, Group C was blindfolded and separated. Opening his eyes, Yuichi found himself with an unfamiliar girl, clearly not someone Yuichi had encountered before. It turned out that it wasn't just Yuichi's ship, but 2 other ships also docked at Kanagashima Island. No one could know the number of survivors or the condition of the participants. This is bad. Yuichi suddenly realized that coordinating with his teammates was impossible. The strange girl proactively offered to cooperate with Yuichi. Her name was Shirisuna Yumiko, a psychology student. This girl expressed that trust was the key to winning this game. To show her sincerity, Yumiko even directly handed her gun to Yuichi. The first objective of this game was to form an alliance to reduce the amount of money spent in a long, seemingly endless conflict like this. However, it was impossible to know whether Yumiko was truly honest or deceitful. Nevertheless, Yuichi remarked that Yumiko gave him a feeling very similar to Sauraji Shiho. Yumiko truly had a pure and innocent smile, just like Shiho. Suddenly, a horde of zombies appeared at their feet. Trusting Yumiko, Yuichi gave her the gun, intending to fight together. But in the Tomodachi Game, nothing is ever that easy. Is it? Yumiko pointed the gun directly at Yuichi's head. Shirisuna Yumiko was not a psychology student at all, but a professional actress. But Yumiko didn't realize that Yuichi had emptied her gun of all its ammunition long ago. While Yumiko wasn't paying attention, Yuichi pushed her into the horde of zombies. It wasn't necessarily that he saw through Yumiko's acting. It was simply that, for better or worse, Yuichi would always try to exploit a true villain. On Kei and Satone's side, they encountered 2 other strange characters, a burly man and a beautiful young woman. The 3 members of the executive committee were very confident, saying that this group of 4 was full of geniuses who could easily win. The first flashpoint was a side event added by Manabu. 2 treasures were added to the game. One treasure was 500 million yen in cash. The other treasure was 5 black bullets, which could immobilize a player for 1 minute. While the 2 geniuses were thinking, the beautiful young woman proactively suggested that the group of 4 go and claim the treasure. This young woman gave Kei a strange feeling. It seemed he had seen her somewhere before. Moreover, her smile alone made Kay feel strangely comfortable. The man stated that he was able to pinpoint the group's location due to his experience in the self-defense force. His name was Subaru Gaku. As for the girl, her name was Hashimoto Momona, a kind of idol. Kay recalled that a member of Team K once said Momona was someone who would absolutely never lie. With these two strangers, he couldn't decide whether to follow them or not. He had to trust Kaido Satone's intuition. Feeling that this would be very interesting, the girl decided to follow. Swept along, Kay also agreed to join the group. In the executive room, the girl with her hair in a bun, Akira, assessed that Kay, who carried a fatal weakness, would very likely be exploited and eliminated by Subaru Gaku. As they neared the treasure's location, Gaku realized that young Kay was injured. He proactively told him to stop and rest, while the rest of the group would continue. But of course, Kay would never agree to that. Out of options, Gaku said he would show him their current location so Kay could catch up with the group later. What if he's lying? Idol Momona then stepped forward and showed Kay the location on the map. Moved by Momona's words, and the phrase Momona definitely never lies, Kay decided to trust her. Upon reaching the house, the remaining three saw that a horde of zombies had already surrounded it. Gaku proactively offered to be the decoy. He also believed that Momona would never betray them, because he was a member of Momona's fan club. After Gaku led the zombies away, Momona comfortably entered the house. She flashed a wild smile, naturally intending to betray the group and claim the 500 million yen and 5 black bullets for herself. Momona and Yumiko, who had previously encountered Yuichi, were teammates, and their capacity for deception was quite similar. But to her surprise, upon opening the door, she found Shinomiya Kay already there. Strange, Momona had clearly lied to him about the location. Unfortunately, Kay was a genius. Right from the start, even blindfolded and separated, he could orient himself and determine his location. Therefore, realizing Momona was lying was not difficult. All Kay had to do was follow her and seize the opportunity to infiltrate the treasure's hiding place. Kay pointed his weapon at Momona. Thinking he had the black bullets, she had no choice but to leave. But when Kay actually opened the treasure, he realized both the 500 million and the black bullets were gone. As for Kay, he was ambushed from behind by Subaru Gaku. At the time Kay was ambushed, he heard 5 gunshots, which could be considered the shots Gaku fired to escape the horde of zombies. But if he didn't use the golden weapon to escape, but instead used 5 red bullets worth 100 million yen each, he could have instantly eliminated the zombie horde. Gaku had eliminated the zombies with 5 red bullets to enter this house from the very beginning. As for the remaining zombies, being a group desperately trying to clear their debts, naturally, upon seeing a madman ready to unleash red bullets upon them, they had no choice but to flee. Furthermore, since he would receive 500 million, firing 5 red bullets was no difficulty for this Gaku fellow. Immediately after the minute was up, Kay was about to flee when he took another black bullet. Subaru Gaku intended to use these 5 black bullets on Kay purely for experimentation. A cold-blooded fiend, Gaku even deliberately aggravated Kay's injury. Suddenly, Sat-1 appeared and took a black bullet for Kay. Exactly 1 minute later, Kay successfully regained movement and carried Sat-1 out of the house. At the same time, Mishima unexpectedly appeared and successfully stopped Gaku. All 3 quickly ran into the forest, but Gaku possessed incredible physical abilities. At this rate, all 3 would soon be overtaken. Sat-1 asked Kay and Mishima to shout to lure the zombies, as black bullets only affect players. Gaku could only switch to other bullets. As for Kay's group, using the golden bullets, they successfully shook off the zombie horde. After the zombies revived, they immediately targeted Gaku, who was trapped. But surprisingly, Gaku was ready to use 1 billion yen to eliminate all the zombies surrounding him. Who was he? In the first half of the game, this individual had eliminated all opponents, abandoned his teammates, and boarded the train alone. While it's true he was once in the self-defense force, he is now a professional assassin, and after deducting the 1 billion yen he just spent, he still has about 5.6 billion yen. Gaku is a true demon. Kei became more serious when Mishima and Satwan talked about Yuichi's group. He revealed that Shiho told him there weren't just one, but two traitors in Yuichi's group. Satwan agreed, as her intuition had also warned her about a traitor in Group C. In return, Satwan also revealed why her father participated in this friendship game. However, even the organizers haven't grasped this secret yet. As for Gaku, a client on Yuichi's ship requested him to eliminate Yuichi. It seems everything is slowly revolving around the name Katagiri Yuichi. No matter what, when the truth is revealed, Yuichi will still have to face a difficult and painful outcome. Meanwhile, Yuichi and Kaido arrived at the tent, realizing that a deranged individual had used a lot of black bullets. Yuichi also understood that a good person like Kaido must also be participating in this game for his own reasons. After one night, the second event began. Some areas would be restricted, and players needed to move out of the forbidden zones as quickly as possible. On their way, Yuichi and Kaido coincidentally encountered Gaku, who was with an unfamiliar young man. They also ran into a horde of zombies. Gaku was about to use the black bullets when Kei intervened just in time. Thinking quickly, Yuichi immediately used the unfamiliar young man as a bullet shield. However, Gaku still had one more black bullet. After telling young Kei to run ahead, Yuichi determined that he might not survive this round of the game. But surprisingly, Kaido voluntarily took the black bullet for Yuichi. The two embraced and fell down the cliff. Gaku mentioned a name, Shiba-san. Wasn't that the surname of the sensei Yuichi eliminated? As for Kaido, after falling off the cliff, he was injured and would have difficulty getting out of the restricted area in time. Kaido said he shielded Yuichi simply so he wouldn't get lost again. Kaido's true identity is a police inspector sent by Shiho's father, Wataru, to infiltrate the Tomodachi Game. Ever since his close friend, Tenji's father, met with harm, Wataru has relentlessly pursued the Tomodachi Game. At the same time, to completely end the friendship game, it is imperative to find and apprehend the boss of this game. After hearing this, Yuichi decided to carry Kaido out of the restricted area. He was moved and intrigued by Kaido, thus deciding to save him instead of abandoning him. But Yuichi confessed something to Kaido. Besides Shiba Taizen, even his adoptive mother, Katagiri Yuichi, was also eliminated by his own hand. He suddenly dropped Kaido, even though they were just a short distance from the restricted area, then pointed a gun at Kaido's head. Perhaps this had been Yuichi's intention from the very beginning. As for Kei's group, they were suddenly surrounded by a horde of zombies. To protect the two youngsters, Mishima lured the zombies away. However, some zombies still managed to pursue Kei and Satwan. While fleeing, Kei suddenly fainted due to yesterday's injury. Before being captured, Kei told Satwan the identity of the traitor in Yuichi's group. Fortunately, Yutori and Shinji appeared just in time, rescuing Kei and Satwan. The boy fainted from pain. When he woke up, he found himself next to Shinji in a lighthouse. Kei suddenly became angry and ran outside. As for Satwan and Yutori, the two of them moved to the cliff. Before Satwan told Yutori a terrible secret, she said that without Kei even needing to name them, based on her intuition, she had sensed that Yutori was the traitor in Group C. This shocking accusation made Yutori feel insulted, and she covered her face, sobbing uncontrollably. But quickly, Yutori's sparkling eyes turned pitch black and terrifyingly sinister. After that, she pushed Satwan off the cliff, witnessed by Shinomiya Kei. Recalling their encounter with Shiho, both had concluded. Since Shiho hadn't lied about the debt, only Yutori remained, who had even received money instead of having it deducted. Yutori was also the one who suggested Shiho collect the picnic money in cash. Furthermore, when Shiho went to Yutori's house, she accidentally witnessed Yutori and a strange young man mistreating Yutori's mother. It was a side of Yutori the group had never seen before. Shiho was quickly apprehended and sent to the game organizers for supervision. While he was deep in thought, Gaku and Shinji appeared from behind Kei, proving that Gaku's client was Yutori. Shinji gave Kei two choices. 1. Forget everything and flee, or 2, abandon the game and Gaku would go down to rescue Sat-1. But Kei decided to jump into the sea to save Sat-1 instead of giving up. Before jumping, he left a hint for Yuichi. As for Yutori, she decided to hunt down everyone Kei had ever met. With Shinji and Gaku's obedience, the three of them would become a nightmare for all remaining members in this game. As for Shibe Makoto, he was currently teaming up with Michiru, along with the two treacherous girls, Momona and Yumiko. Suddenly, the next event appeared. It was a treasure worth double the original treasure, 1 billion yen, along with 10 black bullets. In return, the treasure could only be opened if someone pressed a switch at a location far from where the treasure was placed. Makoto, with his inherent weakness for girls, immediately agreed to press the switch while the three girls would retrieve the treasure. Michiru, Makoto's companion from the start of the game, quickly realized that the other two girls intended to betray her and Makoto. After a basic lecture on morals, Momona and Yumiko essentially agreed to follow Michiru. When they arrived at the treasure chest location, the three discovered Yutori. She immediately asked if anyone had seen Shinomiya Kei. The reason was that before jumping down, Kei had deliberately told Yutori that he had revealed Yutori's secret to two other people. Noticing something amiss, Michiru, who had been with Yuichi's group since the first round, grew suspicious of the Busta girl. Suddenly, a horde of zombies burst out, and surprisingly, they obeyed Yutori's commands. Hiding in a bush, Mishima was observing everything alongside Shibe Makoto. The two had met on their way to the switch, and Mishima had advised Makoto to return to the three girls, leading him to witness this scene by chance. To save Michiru, Mishima had no choice but to reveal himself, deliberately stating that Kei had mentioned a betrayer within Yuichi's group. Upon hearing this, Yutori revealed a face filled with murderous intent. Shibe Makoto appeared, pointing a gun at Yutori. But having revealed her true nature, she showed herself to be a master manipulator as well. Exploiting the image of the mother Makoto had abandoned, she compelled him to point the gun at Mishima's group, before Gaku arrived and subdued him with a black bullet. Before the entire group could be eliminated, Sawaraji Shiho unexpectedly appeared, providing reinforcements for them all. After buying Makoto a full minute, the group fled into the forest. Yutori then revealed to Gaku that her luring Group C into the Tomodachi Game had a purpose, and she had another plan to counter Shiho's moves. The reason Shiho was allowed to return was because Kei and Sat-1 had been confirmed missing. Mishima became enraged, realizing it was due to the injury he had inflicted on Kei in the previous round. Michiru also realized that Yutori had the zombie service thanks to Gaku. Using his unlimited funds, he threatened the zombies into obeying Yutori, if he doesn't want to be hit by a bullet. Therefore, disarming Gaku is enough to neutralize him. Currently, Shiho suspects Tenji is the second traitor in the group. Therefore, it can be understood that Shiho is facing a deranged Yutori with thousands of zombies and a mysterious Tenji whose whereabouts are unknown. So, the group desperately needs Yuichi's help right now. However, Yutori managed to find Yuichi first. She confided in Yuichi that Shiho was the traitor who eliminated Kei and Sat-1. Yutori even intentionally gave Yuichi a black bullet to show her sincerity. Gaku was no less cunning, pretending to play along with Yutori. Once she gained Yuichi's trust, she merely flashed a sinister smile. While searching for Yuichi, Shiho and Makoto encountered a horde of Yutori's zombie minions. Makoto proactively created a diversion so Shiho could continue searching for Yuichi. Suddenly, Shiho reunited with Yuichi while fleeing, but his only response was a gun pointed at her. To heighten the drama, Yutori even pretended to let Gaku shoot her with a black bullet. Gaku even admitted that he had caused the death of Tenji's father under her orders. Tracing back, it seems Yutori was behind all the events of Group C even before the Tomodachi Game began. Even Yutori and Shiho's first meeting might have been actively arranged by her. Turning back to Yuichi, Shiho realized he was looking at her with a face full of malice. Before she could explain, she took a shot from Yuichi. Shiho suddenly recalled her middle school days. It turned out that a middle school accident led to her needing cosmetic surgery, and the large scar on her chest was due to her abduction. Shiho lost all her friends, and her family was also shattered. All she remembered was the kidnapper's deadly gaze. Unexpectedly, Shiho dodged Yuichi's bullet, then kicked him, rendering him unconscious. Faced with Yutori and 7 zombies emanating a menacing aura, Shiho had no choice but to carry Yuichi and flee. Gaku led the 7 zombies in pursuit. When they cornered Shiho against a cliff, she accidentally lost her grip on Yuichi. In that critical moment, she jumped down after him, barely managing to grab a tree branch with one hand while clutching Yuichi with the other. Below, a horde of zombies was waiting. Just then, Shinji appeared. Shiho suddenly realized he was the one who had kidnapped her that day. His main goal was to prevent her father, Wataru, from continuing his investigation into the Tomodachi Game. In her confusion, Shiho inadvertently let go of the unconscious Yuichi. He fell to the ground and regained consciousness. Yuichi understood the situation and entrusted Shiho with completing the Tomodachi Game before being overwhelmed by the zombies. Too shocked by Yuichi's sudden demise, Shiho mustered all her strength to climb the cliff and escape. Gaku and Shinji were not in a hurry to pursue. They already had another plan in mind. Angry and suspicious, Shiho couldn't determine who her true allies were. In her confusion, she thought of Shibe Makoto but couldn't stop doubting him. After all, was the information about this second traitor truly accurate? Even the Tomodachi Game administration couldn't know. The only one who knew was the black-haired girl, Sakino, who was currently speaking with the Tomodachi Game's boss about the final game. As for the boss, he seemed to be closely connected to Group C and would be a ghost from the past that Yuichi would inevitably have to confront. Along with that, a final event to conclude the game was introduced. A large number of zombies were added. Additionally, 2 hunters, equipped with a large quantity of black bullets, joined to hunt the players. The forbidden zones will continue to expand. Fortunately, Shiho managed to regroup with Makoto and Mishima's team in time. Yutori, upon learning of Yuichi's elimination, decided to eliminate all other players. Both teams realized this would be the final battle of the friend-killing game. In a cave, Tenji made his first appearance in this game, signaling his readiness to act. While debating, Shiho's team realized that the 6 of them couldn't confront Yutori's 3 destructive individuals. Furthermore, these 6 came from 3 different smaller groups. Thus, there was no guarantee they could unite to defeat Yutori. Shiho's team was in a deadlock. As for Yutori, she was confident she could crush Shiho's entire team. While Shinji and Yutori remained inactive, Gaku took action. He proactively suggested accepting 2 members of Shiho's team who would betray and join Yutori's team. And the 2 girls, Momona and Yumiko, indeed revealed themselves. However, this was a plan to seize the gun from Gaku. The reason was that the 2 girls were genuinely moved by the sincerity of the fool, Shibe Makoto. But even after snatching the gun from Gaku, he gave the 2 girls no chance to land a shot. He even quickly subdued both of them. Nevertheless, the 2 girls' objective, to deplete Gaku's black bullets, had succeeded. On Shiho's side, things were even more intense. She managed to subdue Mizus Maria and obtain black bullets from the Tomodachi Game staff themselves. The remaining 4 planned to ambush Gaku, but he detected them immediately. A horde of zombies swarmed their location. But this was also a prearranged plan, as the group deliberately lured the zombies, so that Shiho could attack Gaku with all the black bullets they had collected. However, Shiho fell into a trap. Gaku led her to a cliff, where Momona and Yumiko were hanging upside down, with Gaku holding the rope to keep them suspended. If Shiho shot him, the black bullet would immobilize him, and the 2 girls would fall into the chasm. Shiho, with compassion, decided to discard her gun and reached out to grab the rope. Gaku picked up the gun and intended to shoot Shiho. Surprisingly, Mikasa Tenji appeared from nowhere, unclothed, and took the bullet for Shiho. Tenji stated that he had learned Gaku was responsible for his father's demise. Even with the abilities of a master of surveillance, He had obtained information about when Gaku acquired the first black bullets and how he overwhelmed Kei's group. Gaku gradually flinched at Tenji's words, acknowledging the threat that Tenji knew the location of Yutori and Shinji. Just as he finished speaking, a gunshot rang out, distracting Gaku. Under Tenji's threat, he could only abandon Tenji's group and return to rescue Yutori. But in reality, Tenji's plan was to lure Gaku into a zombie lair. The gunshot had been fired by Tenji's teammate. After a skirmish, they both arrived at the ambush location, only to find a large number of zombies shot by red bullets. But in the end, they both encountered Yutori. Yutori still tried to win over Tenji. But Tenji had personally witnessed her pushing Kei and Satwan into the sea, and he was the one who personally rescued them ashore. That was why Tenji knew the details about when Gaku was with Kei and Satwan. As for Gaku, he also successfully obtained the hunter's gun from the administration by pressuring a zombie until the hunter relented and released the weapon, stepping out with a gun loaded with black bullets. It seemed Tenji's plan had reached its end, when from behind, Yuichi approached in a zombie suit and fired a black bullet into Gaku. And it seems Yuichi also grasped the truth about Yutori's betrayal. The black bullet Yuichi used was the very bullet Yutori gave him to fire at Shiho. Going back to when Yuichi restrained Kaido, he only used Kaido as a decoy. His true purpose was to seize the two jackets from the zombie gang. By meeting Tenji, he had determined that Yutori was the traitor from the very beginning. Yuichi and Tenji then put on the zombie outfits and blended in with Yutori's zombie henchmen. The zombie attacking Yuichi was actually Tenji in disguise, testing Shiho's friendship. Thanks to this, the two had time to blend in and see Yutori's true colors. During the tense situation, Yutori still hinted at a second traitor. But Yuichi's group affirmed, with everyone's determination and attitude, there couldn't possibly be two traitors. From behind, Shinji appeared with Shibe, Mishima, and Michiru, all tightly bound. He revealed his full name, Shiba Shinji, son of Shiba Taizen, whom Yuichi had eliminated. This individual then lured Yuichi's group into a game he created, Hostage Exchange. First, a player chooses someone they want to take, and the other side chooses someone they want to keep. After both read out a name, if it's the same person, that person will be kept. But if they fail, the person will be taken back. However, the exchange only occurs after both sides take turns attacking, like a baseball game. Whichever side went first in the previous turn must go second in the next. The winning side is the one that successfully retrieves all 5 people and completes the game. Additionally, one cannot name the person they want to keep 2 consecutive times. At the same time, realizing he had no chance against Yuichi, Shinji demanded to face Shiho instead. In the first round, Shiho successfully retrieved Shibe Makoto. But contrary to her expectation that Shinji would try to secure Gaku or Yutori, the person he chose was Yuichi. The second time was no different. While Shiho failed to win back Yuichi, Shinji managed to retrieve Mikasa Tenji. At this point, the gun was returned to Makoto. It was then that Shinji's true plan was revealed. The entire game was designed solely to take the gun from Shiho's side and give it to the traitor on Shinji's side, who was Makoto. He fired a shot at Shiho, leaving her incapacitated. After that, Makoto also shot Yuichi and Tenji. Yutori's group quickly subdued all 3 individuals and successfully rescued Gaku. It turned out that when Mishima's group was under Shinji's control, Shinji had whispered something into Makoto's ear that made him change his mind. But Yuichi didn't seem surprised by this. After all, Yuichi was the one who wanted Shiho to fail the most. Because only if she failed could the traitor's identity be uncovered. Moreover, this was also an opportunity for the entire group to advance to the next round and eliminate the traitor. It wouldn't be Yuichi if there were no consequences. Suddenly, a horde of zombies appeared and attacked Yutori's group. Yuichi's group, who were tied up, seized this opportunity to escape. Gaku noticed Makoto hesitated slightly when it came to eliminating Shiho. He snatched the gun, but Tenji managed to shield her from the shot in time. On the second shot, Gaku was suddenly restrained by Kaido from behind. He was the one who had faked his demise and waited for the opportune moment to ambush, according to Yuichi's plan. It wasn't just Kaido. Kei struck Gaku on the head from behind, causing him to fall and preventing him from escaping the zombies in time. After that, the game concluded with 5 successful escapees, including Katagiri Yuichi, Sawaraji Shiho, Kokoroji Yutori, Shiba Shinji, and Shibe Makoto. After the game concluded, the 5 survivors had a chance to speak with each other. Shiho tried to get an explanation from her 2 friends but was unsuccessful. Once again, they hinted at an individual in the group who was concealing a secret. Yuichi approached Shiho and told her that in the next game, he would no longer be by her side. Therefore, she would have to choose what she believed was right, even if that choice caused Yuichi distress. The 5 winners were then blindfolded and led away. Shiho met Tsukino, who had been monitoring Group C since the game began. She informed Shiho that she would have 2 days of rest before the final game, which would be the most terrifyingly difficult game to date. Additionally, Shiho would be asked to choose a keyword to be associated with her in the final game. The word Shiho chose was righteousness. Afterward, she was once again blindfolded and taken to a snowy mountain, where Shiho met Santa Manabu, and the Tomodachi Game's final game, Discarding Friendship, was introduced. In this game, all players must live together in a mountain lodge for 2 weeks. All necessary provisions would be supplied at the lodge. During the 2 weeks at the lodge, tasks would be assigned to each player by the game's administrator. Each player would be given a smartphone to communicate with the administration regarding the elimination of other players and to receive information about tasks. These could be group tasks or individual tasks. Each phone could only be used by the player to whom it was assigned. Violence within the lodge was strictly prohibited. The winner of the prize money would be decided through a vote at the end of the game. Each player would have 1 vote and must vote for someone else, not themselves. The person who received the most votes would win the prize money. Participants can eliminate other players from the game by reporting the target player's password to the administration. If an incorrect password is reported, the reporter will be severely penalized. Player passwords are decided before the game begins and must consist of 5 hiragana characters or fewer. After understanding the rules, Shiho was taken to the house on the mountaintop. She met the group of 4 who won with her, and another group of strangers, including Araya Nagi and his daughter Araya Reika, Gori Rahito, a university professor, Hokuto, a beautiful young woman, Harakawa Sora, a high school girl, Kayaguchi Kamiko, a gentle, shy woman wearing glasses, Kawachi Taro, a mysterious man who only sat by the fireplace, and finally Nishizawa Akira, who was also a member of the management team. After entering the house, Shiho received a mission notification stating, "Tell others your password within 24 hours. In the most dire moments, look towards Yuichi." Shiho approached Yuichi, offering to exchange passwords. Unfortunately, Yuichi's response was an unfamiliar gaze. He said that he didn't know Shiho at all. Shocked by Yuichi's attitude, while Shiho was confused, Araya Nagi, the long-haired man, stepped forward to clear the confusion and proactively introduced himself. That was also when Shiho learned the identities of the participants in this final game. Rahito, the muscular man with light-colored hair, immediately questioned Yuichi's suspicious attitude. In response, he claimed that there was nothing guaranteed about Shiho's identity and that she seemed to be someone from the management team who came to disrupt the game. However, Hokuto stood up, accusing Yuichi himself of being the one disrupting the game. She also pointed out the fact that with Yuichi's current attitude, no one would be willing to exchange passwords with him. Yuichi confidently stated that with the 12 people currently in the room, he would surely find someone to exchange passwords with. While he was still confident, Akira appeared from upstairs, cornering Yuichi. In the losers' waiting room, Kei, Sat1, and Tenji's group realized Yuichi was acting unusually and a bit risky, but were certain that Yuichi wouldn't do anything meaningless. Indeed, the game operator later explained that a hidden task Yuichi was assigned was to pretend not to know Shiho. However, Yuichi wasn't the only one assigned such harsh tasks. Currently, there are players with even more challenging tasks, which could cost them their very lives. The next day, the players discovered Akira's body hanging from a tree outside the lodge. Before the group could investigate, the management staff arrived and checked the situation, preventing the players from touching the body. With no other option, they had to return to the cabin. Yuichi was the one who benefited most from this death, naturally becoming the first target. As for Rihito, to ensure Yuichi would be eliminated after the password announcement task concluded, he would proactively tell his password to not just one, but 2 people. This proposal was agreed upon by all members, including Yutori's group. As the evening passed, and everyone settled into their rooms, Makoto proactively sought out Shiho and exchanged passwords with her. He also didn't forget to warn about Yuichi, saying that tomorrow Yuichi might find a way to turn the situation around, and the tables would turn. Sure enough, the next morning, the group realized the task deadline had passed and no one had been eliminated. All suspicions fell on Shiho, but Makoto stepped forward, assuring them that he was the one who had exchanged passwords with her. Indeed, after this incident, no one listened to Rihito anymore. The next morning, Shiho received a notification about a new task. This time, it was to reveal the passwords she knew to at least 2 people. Additionally, she also had a personal task, which was to go to the warehouse and speak with the person there. After deciding to go to the warehouse, she found Rihito lying in a pool of blood. He said there was indeed a dangerous individual among the players. After giving Rihito first aid and both returned, Yuichi always expressed doubt about whether this was a setup. But Shiho insisted on siding with Rihito. Thanks to that, she received immense gratitude from Rihito. That night, in Kimiko's room, a tall, dark figure appeared and bound her. He wore an outfit identical to an object, complete with a mask. His personal mission was to deal with all wrongdoers in the game, and simply by wearing the mask all aggressive actions would be permitted. That individual was Rihito. No one knew what happened that night, but the next morning, Shiho encountered Yuichi with a worried look in his eyes. He warned her that this game was more dangerous than she thought. Suddenly, Rihito called her to his room, revealing Kimiko covered in wounds. Under Rihito's intimidation, Kimiko had to state that Yuichi himself caused these injuries. Rihito lured Shiho out to try and follow Yuichi. Afterwards, they both discovered Yuichi talking with a mysterious person. They followed deeper into the forest edge but were spotted by Yuichi. After letting the other person run off, Shiho returned to Rihito and discovered Yuichi had struck him forcefully with a knife on the shoulder. Without hesitation, she charged forward to confront Yuichi. Just as the knife in Yuichi's hand flew out, Rihito seized the opportunity to strike a blow with a knife towards Yuichi's head. However, Rihito reversed the knife, so Yuichi only sustained an injury to his head. With Shiho's testimony, Yuichi was inadvertently accused of being responsible for both incidents involving Akira and Rihito. Suddenly, with Shiho's choice to side with justice, everything for Yuichi gradually turned disadvantageous. Unable to protect her friend, Shiho felt deeply tormented. That evening, Yutori proactively sought her out, warning her that this game had no victims and she would soon understand why. The next morning, the group realized the power had been cut, and all their food supplies were gone. Nagi's daughter was also attacked. While all suspicions turned towards Yuichi, he unexpectedly vanished despite the wound on his head. Suddenly, a personal mission was sent to Shiho. With a gun under her bed, she could shoot other players. Hiding the gun on her person, Shiho followed Rihito down to the living room, where the players were agreeing to find a way to remove Yuichi, even if it meant using force. No matter how hard she tried to protect Yuichi, under Shinji's pressure, she had to agree to this decision. The members decided to split into a group of 4, including Makoto, Shinji, Rihito, and Shiho, to search for Yuichi. The 4 then separated on the snowy mountain, and Rihito decided to pair with Shiho. They both sat down and chatted intimately. Shiho also openly shared her feelings for Yuichi. However, what she didn't expect was that in a cave, Yuichi was tied up and held captive, with Rihito as the mastermind. While Shiho wasn't paying attention, he approached the cave and gave Yuichi an axe. He then returned and staged a scene for Shiho to see Rihito confronting Yuichi with a sharp axe in hand. Shinji also appeared, grabbing Shiho's arm, realizing the situation was unfavorable for Yuichi. Shiho then pulled out the gun she had kept since that morning. Before things could escalate further, Makoto managed to stop her in time. At the same time, seeing that Yuichi was unconscious, he asked Rihito to tie Yuichi up and bring him back to the cabin. Back at the cabin, even Rihito was tied up. The arbiter was Shiho, gun in hand. Since no one knew about Rihito's mask of justice and special mission, Yuichi couldn't prove that he had kidnapped him. However, Yuichi requested to postpone the decision until tomorrow morning. This situation would be very bad for Rihito, because if it went past tomorrow, he would miss the 3-day deadline for his personal mission and could be eliminated. Surprisingly, the group agreed to move the deadline to midnight. Cornered and out of options, Rihito requested to use the restroom. During that time, he pulled out his mask, hoping to turn the situation around. Suddenly, the entire group fled the house, but forgot about the little girl, Reika. While taking Reika hostage, he demanded Yuichi's appearance, but Yuichi had already slipped away. Shiho had to quickly choose between eliminating the deranged Rihito to save Reika or failing the mission. Under pressure from all the members, she suddenly didn't know how to make a decision. While Shiho was confused, Yuichi appeared and stopped her. He lit a fire, burning down the wooden house, forcing Rihito to leave. Then he struck Rihito unconscious with the gun. This also completed the mission. After completing it, Shiho handed the gun to her friend Yuichi, who fired 2 shots to eliminate the antagonist. Just when they thought their relationships had returned to normal, the group realized that by burning down the house, all their food and fuel were lost. After eliminating Rihito, Yuichi successfully stepped up to become the group's new leader. However, the first thing to do now was to find a new location. The wooden house had been burned down, and they could only hide in the warehouse with extremely limited supplies. Yutori suggested the idea of eliminating some players, but the rules regarding violence. Yuichi was the one holding Shiho's gun. Clearly, all players in this situation had to obey Yuichi unconditionally. While everyone was asleep, Shinji proactively suggested that Shiho cooperate to eliminate Yuichi. In return, he would tell her the rest of the secret he used to persuade Makoto to betray them. While they were talking, Yuichi caught them, and as a punishment, the next morning, Shinji was the only one not given food. Despite her suspicion and discomfort with Yuichi's actions, Shiho remembered that the essence of the game was not to doubt friends. Nevertheless, with the tense atmosphere, it seemed Yuichi's tyrannical rule would not last long. Indeed, on the 8th day, just as Makoto and Yuichi were developing a conflict, a mission was sent. The main objective was to expose everyone's secrets, then vote for 3 people to be expelled from the warehouse tonight. Then, as part of the mission, Shinji recounted the past, which was also the original source of the friendship game. Shibe Makoto's father, Masakazu, was originally a man of twisted character and ill repute. However, in the past, he was extremely pure-hearted and sociable, just like Makoto is now. It turned out that Yuichi had exploited both his adoptive mother Yuka and Makoto's father, who was also the one who started this friendship game. In that game, by taking advantage of Masakazu's kindness and affection, he used his mother as a means to acquire funds. Each month, he siphoned off $1 million from Masakazu as a cost for him to properly care for his mother Yuka's mental well-being. Having been financially drained, Masakazu sought out young Yuichi as a last resort, only to be informed by Yuichi, "Your game is over." Furthermore, Masakazu was not the only one playing this game. Many of Yuka's other friends also participated, but Masakazu was the first to leave the game. To Yuichi, he became someone who valued money over friends. That was also the reason for the changes in Makoto's father's personality and his becoming a corrupt official later on. Unable to refute Shiba Shinji's story, Yuichi frankly admitted the truth, which was even worse. Yuichi reiterated the story of him being responsible for the demise of 3 individuals, as we already knew from Slander Sugoroku. However, he only said that he wished Shiho would judge him for who he is now, rather than who he was in the past. Therefore, currently, there are 2 issues to resolve. Rihito revealed his password to 2 people, but when an incident occurred, those 2 people did not use the password to remove him. Those were Shinji and Yutori. In return, she also accused an accomplice of Yuichi, someone who also knew Yuichi's password but did not act to eliminate him, and was also the one manipulating and controlling Yuichi throughout the game. After Rihito was treated and brought into the room with Tenji's group, he confirmed that person was the one who attacked Rihito in the warehouse. That was not staged. In contrast to the beginning of the game, Yuichi was kneeling, begging that person to exchange passwords. But in response, that person only replied that they enjoyed seeing others writhe in agony. The mysterious person ordered Yuichi to find a way to eliminate a few players. That mysterious manipulator is in this warehouse with Yuichi. Rihito said he knew very well who the mysterious person was because he himself had been manipulated by them. Returning to the tense situation in the warehouse, under Yutori's threat, 5 people raised their hands, confirming that Yuichi had asked them to exchange passwords with him. Out of options, Yutori proactively suggested that she, Shinji, and Yuichi would be the 3 people expelled from the warehouse. Using this method, Yutori aimed to expose the identity of Yuichi's accomplice. She also mentioned a karmic thread between her and Yuichi. While Yutori was flirting with Yuichi, Kimiko unexpectedly stepped forward to defend him. Saying that Yuichi was the prince who had protected her from Rihito, she would not allow him to be the one expelled. Not only Kimiko, but also Hokuto and Nagi stood up to oppose Yuichi's expulsion. Hokuto also revealed that she is the elder sister of Tanida Ryusei, the swindler whom Yuichi defeated in the friendship prison game. Watching on screen, Kei realized that it seemed one of the 3 had been given Yuichi's password. Rihito himself admitted that one of the 3 was the mastermind pulling the strings and manipulating the main character throughout the first half of the game. As night fell, one person from the group stepped outside to use the restroom. However, he was holding a phone and dialing a number to call the organizers. He announced that Yuichi's password was most sinful. The identity of that person was Araya Nagi. After speaking with Santa Manabu, he learned that it would take at least another 30 minutes for the organizers to reach the warehouse and expel Yuichi. Therefore, he had no choice but to carry his daughter Reika back to the warehouse. At this moment, Nagi revealed his cowardly nature, willing to lie and even exploit his own daughter to survive in the game. It even seemed that Nagi intended to abandon Reika after winning. His plan was to proactively let Yuichi eliminate 3 people to complete the mission, then use the password to proceed with Yuichi's elimination. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned. The first person the main character decided to expel was Araya Nagi. The main reason was that he was always a coward, using his daughter as a human shield. Even the password he used to exchange with Yuichi was Reika's password. Nagi rationalized that all parents would exploit their children in such a way. Upon hearing this, Yuichi flew into a rage, drawing his gun, intending to shoot Nagi. Suddenly, Reika still stood up to shield her father. Recalling his own childhood memories, Yuichi didn't want the girl to follow in his footsteps, having had a terrible father. Yuichi persuaded Reika to stand by his side with a gentle expression and tears in his eyes. At this moment, Nagi, isolated and helpless, received a message informing him that the password he had recited for Yuichi was incorrect. Before he could regain his composure, the lights in the warehouse suddenly went out, and everything plunged into chaos. When the lights came back on, Nagi had sustained a severe wound to the abdomen and was lying amidst a spreading crimson stain. Fortunately, Dr. Kawachi managed to save Nagi's life in time. However, Nagi was still the first to be expelled as he could not continue the game. At this point, Yutori revealed that her father had passed away. And once again, it seemed Yuichi knew something about this, but he decided to ignore it. As for Hokuto, instead of looking for the two expelled individuals, she wanted to investigate the true assailant who attacked Nagi, even discovering there were not just one, but two people involved. The atmosphere gradually grew tense, and the lights suddenly went out again. This time, everyone held weapons in their hands, ready to attack those around them. Kimiko was about to attack Yutori when Shinji knocked her to the ground with a kick. Enraged, she grabbed a hammer and swung wildly, but was stopped by Shiho and Kawachi. Surprisingly, Dr. Kawachi proactively offered to be expelled. Along with that, he also suggested that young Reika accompany him. However, Kawachi's departure meant that if any attacks occurred, there would be no way to provide timely treatment for the injured anymore. After observing, Shinomiya Kei began to vaguely deduce the mastermind behind Yuichi. The management committee personnel arrived to provide another hint. In the video provided by the management committee, we saw Yuichi kneeling and pleading with another person. That person was Tanida Hokuto. However, things were not that simple. Kei explained that whenever Yuichi found himself at a disadvantage, he would make strange statements. Within those statements, he interspersed the passwords of other players. He used this as a threat and forced three people to side with him. In other words, Yuichi had exchanged passwords with all three people. He had knelt and wept for all three, but only one of them received the actual password. After witnessing Nagi's deplorable condition, the remaining two were reluctantly forced to be truly cautious, because she couldn't be sure if her password was a fake one or not. That evening, Hokuto met Yuichi and asked him to hand over his phone to her. After giving his phone to Hokuto, upon returning to the tent, unexpected events once again unfolded. As Hirakawa Sora was demanding her food portion, Yuichi suddenly announced that someone had stolen his phone, and no food would be distributed until the culprit was found. But clearly, the phone was in Hokuto's hands. While she was still confused by Yuichi's words, to quickly prove her innocence, Hirakawa Sora removed all her garments. Seeing this, the other three girls also voluntarily removed all their garments to prove their innocence. Except for Hokuto, who was still hesitant due to the fact that she was holding Yuichi's phone. Compelled to remove her garments with no other choice, Hokuto desperately fled from the warehouse. She used the phone to inform the organizers of Yuichi's password, and again, it was a notification awaiting verification from Manabu. Yuichi later found her completely unclothed at the edge of the forest. He told her she was foolish, no different from his younger brother Ryusei. A notification from Hokuto's phone rang out. The password she provided was once again incorrect. Enraged at being deceived, Hokuto pulled Yuichi's phone from her bra to smash it, only to see him slowly pull out his real phone. The phone she had just smashed belonged to Araya Nagi. This time, the penalty was that Hokuto's password had been revealed to Yuichi. Cornered, Hokuto had no choice but to kneel and apologize to him in a state of complete exposure. These developments meant that the person who had Yuichi cornered also knew his real password. It was the seemingly weak and gentle Kimiko. According to Rahito, she was the true madwoman. Returning to the time Rahito physically accosted her, he actually had no intention of directly harming Kimiko. Her being covered in injuries was self-inflicted. Not only that, even so, but it was Kimiko who betrayed Rahito at the most crucial moment. After all, it was Kimiko who manipulated Rahito, a genuine lunatic. While in the tent, Kimiko constantly displayed her strength as a way to curry favor with Yuichi. As soon as Shibe Makoto showed defiance, Yuichi sent him out to gather firewood. Kimiko immediately offered to go along and Yuichi agreed. These developments made Sat-1 think of an extremely dire situation for our main character. Indeed, while walking with Makoto in the forest, she was confided in by Makoto that, besides judging Yuichi's transgressions, he had a reason to survive and win this game at all costs. Taking advantage of Makoto, Kimiko gave him a bottle of rodenticide, suggesting he use it with great cunning. Makoto happily accepted, unaware that he had fallen into this delaying stratagem. For Kimiko, her entire life had been lived as an ordinary person, living a quiet life, watching villains or special individuals perform and contend with each other, so that ordinary people like her, who comfortably survive, would be the ones to smile last. Entering the final game with this very principle, she merely stood by and quietly manipulated, encouraging individuals to compete and clash. Specifically, the conflict between Yuichi and Rihito. When Kimiko and Makoto returned to the tent, another argument broke out. Harakawa Sora demanded that all the food from then until the last day be handed over in a single go. Naturally, Yuichi refused, reasoning that if she ate it all in one day, there would be no guarantee she could survive until the last day. However, despite this, Makoto still seemed displeased. Seizing that opportunity, Kimiko suggested splitting into two factions. Anyone who opposed Yuichi had the right to take all their rations at once and bear the responsibility for it themselves. This was also an opportunity for Makoto to use the toxic substance she had given him. As night fell, Kimiko once again stirred up conflict between the friends Makoto and Yuichi. She warned about a secret weapon that could eliminate him, and she encouraged him to use his gun to resist Shibe if necessary. The next morning, surprisingly, instead of Yuichi, Harakawa Sora was the one affected by the toxic substance. It seemed she had secretly stolen Yuichi's portion of food. The reason was that Sora used to be a bit plump. Thanks to dieting, she achieved her current ideal physique. However, her dieting situation was currently worsening. Whenever she felt stressed or upset, it led to intense food cravings. Being in the poor conditions of the warehouse caused her to lose control and steal Yuichi's food. After recounting Sora's story, Kimiko immediately directed suspicion towards Makoto. She presented an audio recording that captured his words when he went into the forest to gather firewood. Surprised by this betrayal, Makoto didn't expect Kimiko to feign innocence, claiming she knew nothing about the exchange in the forest. Cornered, Shibe Makoto was forced to be searched. Kimiko was certain that once the rodent control substance was found, Makoto would be put in a difficult position, and the entire group would turn against each other. But surprisingly, when Makoto was searched, no trace of the vial of toxic substance was found. Instead, it was in Yuichi's pocket. He explained that among those present, there was a ruthless individual manipulating Yuichi, and he was forced to follow their instructions. That was also the person who forced Akira to return to her position as a board member at the start of the game. Whoever exposes the true identity of the culprit will surely be the winner of this final game. Initially, Nishizawa Akira had no intention of leaving the game so soon, but the culprit issued threats that forced her to withdraw earlier than planned. As Yuichi recounted the story of the perpetrator, clues about Kimiko and Yuichi's secret collaboration would soon emerge. To avoid falling into a disadvantageous position, Kimiko proactively admitted that she was the one who gave the toxic substance to Makoto. Naturally, Makoto denied putting it in the food, as suspicion shifted to Yuichi. He played an audio recording of a conversation between him and the mysterious perpetrator. This was the individual who had expressed a desire to see others suffer intensely. But it seemed that it wasn't Kimiko, but someone entirely different. Shinji had already deduced that Kimiko was the one manipulating Yuichi. However, regarding the perpetrator's identity, Shinji couldn't find anything from Kimiko. Even as an assassin, he couldn't sense an intent to harm from her. Urged by Yutori, Shinji decided to investigate Kimiko. He requested to speak with her privately. Kimiko appeared flustered, requesting to discuss it privately with Yuichi first. This only made Shinji more certain that she was involved with this resourceful main character. While talking in the forest, Kimiko unexpectedly handed Shinji Yuichi's gun, and with her innocent and naive expression, she successfully deceived the assassin. While Shinji was distracted, she managed to inflict a wound on his back. Despite having gone to such lengths, she still vehemently denied being the perpetrator. Executive board member Akira stated that Shinji, despite being skilled in both academics and combat and being the son of Shiba Taizen, still carried a critical weakness that prevented him from being perfect. In the past, Akira and Shinji had known each other even before the Tomodachi game truly began. She often wondered why, Despite being the eldest son, he was given the name Shinji. At that time, Shinji was tasked with meeting and protecting a middle school girl. It seemed to be Yutori. Upon his return, Akira was surprised to find Shinji wounded in the abdomen. While bandaging his wound, he shared that he was someone who couldn't understand the pain of others. Regarding Yutori's family situation, at that time, her mother was burdened with an enormous debt. Yutori's father, upon learning of the situation, gradually became unpredictable and aggressive. Old debts remained unpaid, and new ones accumulated. One day, her mother left, and all the anger subsequently fell upon Yutori. In that unfortunate circumstance, Yutori's heart was completely shattered. Sometime later, Yutori's father suddenly passed away, and after meeting boss, Yutori was taken in and reunited with her mother. During that reunion, Shinji was injured with a blade by Yutori's mother. Realizing her mother's mental state was disturbed, he intended to intervene to protect the girl but was stopped by Yutori herself. He suddenly realized he couldn't understand why the two of them cared for each other so deeply. In truth, Shinji couldn't comprehend the contradictions and emotions of others. Therefore, Shiba Taizen changed his name from Shinichi to Shinji, meaning he would forever only be the heir to the number one. Someone who understands the emotions of others but is still willing to betray them. Understanding others' feelings, then, depending on the situation, being able to transform into an angel or a devil. That is the true successor of Shiba Taizen. Returning to reality, Shinji easily sent Kimiko flying and calmly pulled the awl that had pierced him from his body. With Shinji's fury, Kimiko could no longer play the role of a normal person hiding in the shadows. Fortunately, before Shinji could do anything to Kimiko, the whole group arrived. Unexpectedly, Yuichi accused Shinji of being the one responsible for the deaths who had manipulated him. Shinji realized the poisoning incident was staged by Sora and Yuichi themselves to falsely accuse Shinji of being the one responsible for the deaths. It was also Yuichi who planted the thought in Kimiko that Shinji must be eliminated. Sowing thoughts into Kimiko's mind, or in other words, Yuichi had manipulated her in return. Afterwards, Shinji proposed a game to Yuichi. If Yuichi won, he would voluntarily withdraw from the game as the perpetrator. But if not, Yuichi would have to perish at Shinji's hands. He believed this was the only chance to determine who was superior between the older and younger brother. It seemed Kimiko's wound was not as simple as Shinji thought. Blood began to flow more profusely, and he could no longer maintain his composure. Shinji would pose 3 questions that Yuichi was obligated to answer. If he perceived the answer to be a lie, he would consider it incorrect, and Yuichi would be shot. For the first question, it was whether Yuichi had eliminated Shiba Taizen. It seemed there was little need to debate this truth. For the second question, Shinji asked how Yuichi had ended his teacher's life. He recalled that moment, in a fit of rage with tears streaming down his cheeks. He had plunged the blade into the back of his esteemed teacher, severed his legs, and then inflicted multiple wounds upon Shiba Taizen. Once finished, he displayed a sinister smile. Satisfied with the 2 answers, Shiba Shinji prepared to ask the final question. His face was pale from blood loss. He wanted to know what Shiba Taizen had said before his demise. With a sorrowful expression, Yuichi recalled his teacher's apology to all those he had deceived, and also to his eldest son, stating that Shinji was not a mere backup, but rather the best son he could have. However, unmoved by these words, Shinji quickly realized it was a lie. He pulled the trigger, intending to shoot Yuichi, when the gun unexpectedly exploded. Shinji quickly realized that Yuichi had sabotaged the weapon from the start, and he had deliberately lied and toyed with Shinji to trick him into pulling the trigger. Disappointed upon realizing the significant difference in their abilities, Shinji quickly conceded defeat. Before leaving, Shinji asked again about Taizen's dying words. The truth was that Taizen's final words were not for Shinji. Instead, it was a plea, "Please forgive Yuka." Satisfied with the answer, Shinji departed, lay down, and gazed at the sky. With severe hand injuries and wounds inflicted by Kimiko, he had almost accepted his demise. It seemed this would be the end for the marksman. However, amidst the snow, Dr. Kawachi suddenly appeared and carried Shinji away. Kawachi reminded Shinji that, no matter how dominant Yuichi might be, the true winner is the one who holds the highest total votes. Therefore, even Yuichi could end up being the loser in this game. The game only had 4 days left until its conclusion. Tenji was unexpectedly asked to meet with the game's boss. According to the game staff's explanation, it seemed the boss was someone very close to Tenji. As for Satwan, as the game drew closer to its end, through her intuition, she increasingly sensed a massive death flag planted on the head of one of the 5 members of Group C. As the game progressed into its final days, Kimiko, Hokuto, and Sora suddenly went missing. Only 4 members of Group C remained in the warehouse. The 4 of them gathered to decide who they would vote for. Shiho decided to vote for Yuichi and vice versa. As for Makoto, he would vote for Yutori. Similarly, Yutori would vote for Makoto. This way, the votes would be equal. Yuichi was concerned that the organizers might declare a result where there was no winner. Therefore, the groups needed to be persuaded to change their votes to determine a winner. To persuade Shiho, Yutori recounted the story of her life, how Yuichi was responsible for her father's demise and shattered her family. Yutori's mother was originally a simple and shallow person, but with her caring father, the 3 of them had a happy period. That was until Yutori's mother incurred debts, and her father began to act abusively towards his wife. Moreover, it was a debt Yutori's mother obtained through deeply personal means. Sometime later, her mother left home, and Yutori became the target of abuse. Then one day, her father ended his life. The reason was that her father had tried to take on her mother's debt but failed, and then attempted to borrow even more. The lenders this time were none other than Shiba Taizen and Katagiri Yuichi. The 2 of them utterly crushed Yutori's father's spirit. Later, from the boss's words, Yutori learned that the reason for her mother's debt was none other than Katagiri Yuichi. He had used Yuka, her foster mother, to threaten Yutori's mother for 1 million yen a month. Indeed, that was a victim of the first friendship game Yuichi had orchestrated. Yutori also confirmed that the boss of the friendship game was someone the entire group knew well. She even pointed out that all members of Group C shared a commonality. Their parents were all victims of that first friendship game. From the very beginning, the threads of karma had already bound the entire group together. Many years ago, that group of 5 also possessed personalities identical to the initial group of 5. However, the reason all 4 families fell apart stemmed directly from Yuichi's game. By this point, even Shiho couldn't help but suspect him. She gradually felt despair, even wondering if Yuichi hadn't changed at all from before. As for Yuichi, he didn't seem to want to explain anything further, leaving his friend extremely worried and confused. Suddenly, the phone displayed 3 questions, which players were required to answer correctly if they wanted to win the friendship game, including, who is the true betrayer in Group C? What crime did Yuichi commit? And the true identity of the boss in the friendship game? It seemed this event was specifically for the 5 friends in Group C. In the executive office, the final boss of the friendship game appeared. As expected, the boss seemed to understand the members of Group C very well. He wanted to test the members to see who they would choose as the winner, now that everyone knew the truth. However, for these 3 questions, each member of Group C could only guess one answer. Even Yutori, who had been involved in the friendship game and its organization from the very beginning, did not know the correct answer to question number 2. More specifically, it was the true identities of the 3 people Yuichi had eliminated. Originally, Shibe Makoto believed these 3 people were Shiba Taizen, Katagiri Yuka, and Yutori's father. However, in reality, Yutori's father was not directly eliminated by Yuichi, because if they included everyone who perished due to Yuichi's influence, that number certainly wouldn't stop at just 3 lives. Yuichi understood that the boss not only knew him well but also detested him deeply. Currently, based on the facts, Yuichi thought that only Shiho's father, Mr. Wataru, remained. However, this candidate was ruled out after Yuichi met Mr. Wataru's subordinate, Kaido. Therefore, Yuichi gradually began to think about those who had perished, possibly even Shiba Taizen. After observing Shibe and Yutori's reactions, Yuichi became more certain of his answer. In the control room, the boss then said that the person who resented Yuichi the most was certainly not Shiba Taizen. All the mysteries remained unsolved. Shibe Makoto suddenly expressed doubt as to whether the 3 people Yuichi had eliminated were truly by his own hand. Because it's possible that among those 3, some were almost brought to their end, or something more complex than a typical taking of a life occurred. The subject of that suspicion was directed towards Katagiri Yuichi. At this point, the whole group desperately wanted to know how Yuichi had eliminated Katagiri Yuichi. Even Shiho desperately wanted to know the reason for Yuichi's sudden change. She truly wanted to understand his feelings so she could choose whether or not to trust him again. The story returned to the time of the first friendship game. Initially, Yuichi only saw Yuka as a tool to make money. But gradually, Yuka became his reason for living. Yuka gave Yuichi an incredibly comfortable feeling, vastly different from when he was with his teacher, Shiba Taizen. It seemed Yuka possessed a mysterious charm that drew others to her. Even Shiba Taizen had developed feelings for Yuichi's mother. Unaware of this truth, Yuichi returned home to accidentally witness Shiba Taizen forcing himself upon his mother. Unconsciously, he caused the demise of Shiba Taizen. Afterwards, with only his mother and Yuichi remaining, Yuka told him a secret she had kept from him and his friends for a long time. After hearing it, Yuichi took the life of his own mother. What was that secret? Yuichi adamantly refused to reveal it. This secret is related to the 3rd person Yuichi eliminated. Keeping his promise to his mother, Yuichi swore not to reveal this secret to anyone. In the executive office, it seemed the organization had been attacked and infiltrated. The members understood that this could be the end of the entire friendship game. For the group of 4 members, fuel was running low, and they would have to endure the cold for another 2 days until the game could end. At the infirmary, Kei and Sat-1 seemed to have deduced the identity of the 3rd person Yuichi caused the demise of, as well as Yuka's secret. Kei suddenly became aware of Yuichi's actions and the ultimate conclusion of the game. While deep in thought, both were attacked by a group of staff members. It seemed Kaido's identity had been exposed, and they were trying to capture Sat-1 as a hostage. Fortunately, the 4 members of Group K, along with Kaido, arrived in time to rescue Kei and Sat-1. To successfully rescue them both, Group K and Kaido had to remember another informant, one hidden within the game's executive committee. That was the person who had continuously given hints to Kei's group, and also the one who directly offered him advice. It was the black-haired man named Tojo. At this moment, he and Tenji were on their way to the snowy mountain to reunite with Yuichi's group. Tenji also got to meet Sawaraji Wataru again, who had learned the entire truth. All were heading towards the snowy mountain, where the conclusion of the Tomodachi game would unfold. During the journey to the snowy mountain, Wataru also explained that the actions of Tenji's 2 friends, which made him think it was all Shiho's fault, were also due to the intervention of the Tomodachi Game organization. Throughout that time, Wataru and Kaido had tried to infiltrate deeper into the game. Thanks to Tojo's assistance, the police successfully located the person behind the Tomodachi Game. Then, from Wataru's mouth, Tenji learned that the friendship among the original 5 members of Group C ultimately revolved around Yuka. Yutori's mother, Tenji's father, Shiho's father, or Makoto's father, were all drawn to Yuichi's mother. This unique friendship existed because all 4 of them harbored feelings for Yuka. Coincidentally, this allowed the first version of the friendship game to run so smoothly. However, Wataru told Tenji a terrible truth. Yuka had lied to her friends. She had kept a certain secret, which had now caused Yuichi to completely lose control. Understanding the situation, all 3 tried to rush to the snow mountain, before the game concluded with the worst possible outcome. On Yuichi's side, fuel had long run out, and the group was battling the cold of the blizzard. They were forced to pair up to keep warm. It was also at this moment that the group's friendships were suddenly mended, as if they had returned to their relationships from before the Tomodachi game. Suddenly, Yuichi suggested that Makoto betray Yutori. This was because Yuichi realized that from the friend elimination game, Makoto had exhibited extremely unusual behavior. Ever since hearing something from Shiba Shinji, Makoto had also shown an unusually strong resolve to win the friendship game. Yuichi also guessed what Shinji had told Makoto. It was a sense of guilt that compelled him to win this game to atone for his mistakes. Therefore, Yuichi was willing to let Makoto win. The goal was to be able to defeat the boss of the Tomodachi Game with his own hands. However, Makoto rejected this offer. The reason was that he could no longer trust Yuichi. Furthermore, Makoto did not want to betray Yutori again. He wanted to protect Yutori from past traumas, rather than betraying her to make her lose control again. Out of options, Yuichi offered Makoto the remaining way to destroy the friendship game, to eliminate him. Just like that, the boss's hatred would lose its direction, enough to bring down the friendship game once and for all. While still deep in thought, unsure whether to act against Yuichi, he had already fainted from the cold. Yuichi, meanwhile, had suddenly vanished. The three friends were locked in the warehouse, unable to open it. After hearing Yuichi's plan, Shiho became extremely worried. As for Yutori, she realized that Shiho's vote would now determine who would be the winner of this long, drawn-out friendship game. On the snowy mountain, Yuichi reunited with Dr. Kawachi. Both were hatching some kind of plan. Tenji and Wataru's group, on the other hand, had reached the Tomodachi Game's executive office. But everything had vanished. All the bosses and the executive board had gone to the snowy mountain house to hold the final vote. The three friends were also released from the warehouse, heading to the hall where the election would take place. Suddenly, Yuichi emerged from behind, accompanied by Kawachi Taro, followed by all the players who had disappeared throughout the game. Yuichi stated that his final tactic, the one he had been hiding all this time, could finally be used. Shiho tried to approach and talk to the eliminated players, convincing them to vote for her or Shibe. Unfortunately, with 7 players eliminated, they had lost the right to decide their own votes. In fact, the survival of those 7 people until this point was solely due to Yuichi controlling their every move. From the start of the round, Yuichi realized this game wasn't suited for him. To win this game, instead of becoming someone well-liked, he decided to become a dominator. He held absolute power by exploiting the player's most valuable asset, their passwords. Right from the start of the game, he played the role of an unlikable loner. This allowed him, in the guise of a weaker individual, to successfully gather the passwords of 3 strangers, Sora, Reika, and Kawachi in the game, except for Rahito. The attack on Rahito in the warehouse was also Yuichi's intention. As for Nagi, Hokuto, and Kimiko, to capitalize on Rahito's chaos, they willingly handed over their teammates' passwords to Yuichi. Burning down the tent and forcing the group into a hellish situation in the warehouse was also Yuichi's way of exposing their true natures. Exploiting their mindset of viewing Yuichi as a disposable pawn for their own personal gain, Yuichi easily tricked the 3 individuals into attacking him and obtained their passwords. Adding the password obtained from Shinji, he now held 7 passwords, enough to manipulate the entire game. However, there were things Yuichi couldn't accomplish alone. Therefore, all suspicions fell on the mysterious individual, Kawachi Taro, who knew Yuichi's real password. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The truth about the voice of the perpetrator, as well as the person who knew Yuichi's password, was Akira. Yuichi's method was to eliminate those who knew the password. The one who threatened Akira to leave the game early was Yuichi. He was also the one who played the role of the perpetrator, using that non-existent perpetrator to incite and divide the players. A daring and elaborate plan in the final game from Yuichi. And then what was meant to happen happened. The final boss of the game appeared. After encountering the boss, Yuichi proceeded to the final mission. To the first question about the boss's identity, Yuichi answered Shiba Taizen. Shibe Makoto breathed a sigh of relief, telling Shiho that Yuichi was wrong. The final boss couldn't possibly be Shiba Taizen. Seeing his friend's reaction, Yuichi smiled with satisfaction. Turned out that guess was just a lie. Shiba Taizen was truly deceased. The only person whose demise Yuichi had never witnessed, who was connected to the Group C5, and harbored a profound animosity towards Yuichi, could only be one individual. The identity of the ultimate mastermind was none other than Shibe Masakazu. Firstly, Yuichi had identified the boss's identity, which most likely belonged to one of the four parents of Group C. Since the boss was male, Yutori's mother could be eliminated. Shiho's father, Mr. Wataru, also could not be the boss. Therefore, only Tenji's father, Mr. Yutaka, and Shibe's father, Mr. Masakazu, remained. However, Tenji's father's passing had been confirmed by Tenji himself, and there would be no explanation for Mr. Wataru's desire for vengeance if Mr. Yutaka had not truly passed away. Thus, only Shibe's father, Shibe Masakazu, remained. Furthermore, the secret Shiba Shinji revealed to Shibe Makoto was, "Your father is the ultimate mastermind of the friendship game." It was because of this secret that Shibe Makoto became so determined to win, even to the point of being willing to betray his friends. So why did Mr. Masakazu have to involve so many people in such an intense game? Returning to the time Masakazu met Yutori, it turned out that throughout that period, Masakazu was plagued by a sense of guilt. That's why he created the Tomodachi Game as a way to answer whether anyone truly valued friends over money. Regarding the second question about the identity of the third person Yuichi had eliminated, Masakazu stated that Yuka had hidden a truth from the group. She had said she could no longer conceive, but the truth was that when Yuka met her end, she was carrying a child. According to Masakazu, the last individual impacted by Yuichi was the child of Katagiri Yuichi and Shiba Taizen. Upon hearing this truth, both Makoto and Shiho no longer trusted Yuichi. This was a truth too cruel for the friends of Group C. However, Yuichi had a completely different answer. He said this secret would surprise Masakazu. So, to prevent him from potentially reneging and invalidating the game's results, he suggested proceeding with a vote before he gave his answer. After the vote was concluded, Yuichi revealed the truth. That the child Yuka was carrying at that time was not Taizen's, but Masakazu's own. Exhausted from having to pay 1 million yen each month, Shibe Masakazu went to the hospital and was intimate with Yuka. And in that single instance, Yuka became pregnant with his child. Wataru and Tenji arrived just in time for the crucial moment, confirming Yuichi's information. When Yuichi took Yuka's life, she confessed that Masakazu was the one she loved most. At any cost, she wanted this child to be born, so she begged Yuichi not to harm her. Upon hearing this, unable to control his emotions, Masakazu shot Yuichi. However, despite the pain, what Yuichi wanted now was for the results of the final game to be announced quickly. Masakazu suddenly felt a surge of malicious satisfaction, stating that this was Katagiri Yuichi's true nature. For money, he could betray all his relatives, family, and friends. Yuichi himself was the absolute worst kind of person. Gathering his last breath, Yuichi pleaded with Masakazu to order an immediate end to this tragic chain of events. Noticing that the police had also arrived, Masakazu gave up and declared the game over. Yuichi slowly collapsed from blood loss, while none of his 4 Group C friends reached out to help him. Perhaps because they were too disillusioned by the terrible truth that had just been revealed before them. Suddenly, Kei and Satwan appeared. The two tried to approach Yuichi but were stopped by Shibe. In a fit of anger, the boy punched Makoto directly in the face and was about to stand up to explain himself to Kei. Makoto realized the boy was crying. The boy was extremely disappointed that despite trying so hard, not a single person in Group C understood Yuichi's efforts. All that was needed was to announce the game's winner, and all misunderstandings would be resolved. Surprisingly, it wasn't Katagiri Yuichi. The ultimate winner of the friendship game was Sawaraji Shiho. Could it be that the eliminated players had betrayed Yuichi to vote for Shiho? But no, all 7 people had voted according to Yuichi's instructions. This meant Yuichi had designated Shiho as the winner from the very beginning of the game. From the very beginning, Katagiri Yuichi was assigned a personal mission as follows. If Katagiri Yuichi wins with a majority vote, the prize money will be doubled to 9 billion yen. Conversely, if another player wins with a majority vote, the prize will be 0. In return, all debts incurred by all players in the friendship game will be erased, depending on the winner's decision. This prize is worth 20 billion yen. However, Katagiri Yuichi must keep this information a secret. If any player discovers it, he will be deemed to have lost the entire game. Therefore, he placed all his trust in Shiho, believing she would free all players in this friendship game. Additionally, there are 2 ways to dismantle the friendship game. The first way is to eliminate the game's boss. But the second way, as Yuichi once mentioned, is the demise of its creator. In other words, Yuichi had aimed for this outcome from the very beginning. Yuichi and Kawachi joined forces with a promise to dismantle the friendship game once and for all. He was the one who secretly moved necessities into a cave, while Kawachi supported the players eliminated from the warehouse, to help them survive until the final day of the game. Yuichi did this so they could participate in the election day, because only then could a positive outcome be achieved to save everyone, as well as sever the root of all wrongdoing. Shinji spoke up, saying that even so, no one would be willing to vote for Yuichi. After all, he was just a deceiver who had misled many people in this game. For that reason, Yuichi didn't ask them to vote for him. The pledge simply stated, to participate in the vote and not change their decision in this cave to reach that goal. He asked them to vote for the best among the players, and every vote pointed to a single name, Sawaraji Shiho. From beginning to end, Yuichi had always trusted Shiho throughout the game. Yuichi's plan from the start was to play the villain himself, solely to highlight Shiho as the good person. By doing so, even without mentioning her name, everyone would immediately associate her with the word good person. In this final situation, Yuichi used the correct strategy in the friendship game to win. Never doubt your friends. Afterward, Yuichi was rushed to the emergency room. Fortunately, due to the extremely cold snowy mountain terrain, Yuichi's brain injuries were minimized. However, Yutori still seemed unforgiving of what he had done to the families of his 4 friends. Having no other choice, Kei asked Tenji to reveal the secret that Yuichi had tried to conceal with his life. Recalling the 3 questions of the task, there was one Yuichi never answered. Who was the true betrayer of Group C? The answer Masakazu wanted to point to was Katagiri Yuichi. But if it were that simple, Yuichi wouldn't have had to use countless arguments to avoid answering this final question. In other words, Yuichi didn't want everyone to realize that the source of the wrongdoing didn't come from him. Yuichi didn't want that person to be pursued, so he risked his own life to protect them. He wouldn't let his target realize they were deceived until the very end. The betrayer was Katagiri Yuka. Growing up without a place to call home, having to strive to earn money for school, yet she was always more cheerful and gentle than anyone else. All 4 friends in Group C were captivated by her. That was also why all 4 were drawn so deeply into the friendship game. Coincidentally, the girl suffered from a serious illness. Coincidentally, a stranger discovered this vulnerability. And then, coincidentally, the girl couldn't have children, so she adopted Yuichi. There were too many coincidences, or rather, it was all orchestrated by Yuka. Yuka was not actually suffering from a serious illness. The doctor's announcements about Yuka's condition to the members were all under her instruction. She only had a heart condition, something that could be managed with daily medication. Therefore, from another perspective, this was Yuka's ultimate secret, something Yuichi always kept hidden. Or more precisely, Yuichi eliminated Taizen just to protect his mother's respectable image. But when he realized his mother's true contradictory nature, he ended her life. That was the dual-sided mechanism within Yuichi's own heart, who carried both trust and doubt simultaneously, transforming it when necessary, forming 2 states of angel and demon, just as in Shiba Taizen's ideals. Yuichi could be close to everyone while simultaneously having the capacity to deeply hurt anyone. After that, Sawaraji Wataru emerged from the hospital room. Yuichi's chances of recovery were now very low. Yuichi now faced 2 choices. That was the choice of prolonged treatment until he could regain consciousness. Of course, the treatment costs would be very expensive. Mr. Wataru said that the decision would rest with the 4 members of Group C. However, with the enormous treatment costs, he could only afford to support Shiho. Tenji, who had lost both parents and dropped out of high school. Makoto, who would have to face the debts incurred after Masakazu's apprehension. Or Yutori, who would also be detained for the crimes she committed. All 4 would have to face their own difficulties and struggles. Therefore, the choice of whether or not to continue supporting Yuichi's recovery would rest entirely with Group C, much like the first friendship game. Wataru also hoped the group could discuss it more thoroughly together instead of rushing to make erroneous decisions, as he had in his time. After that was a long silence with K and Group C. Everyone understood the formidable power of money, how its influence could make friendships fragile and easily broken. Ultimately, the group still had their own answer. 2 years later, each person had established their own career. Shiho became Kawachi's recovery nurse. Makoto started working under Mishima. Yutori became a manga artist. As for Tenji, he worked at Director Genzo's factory. As for Kei, he continued his studies with the dream of becoming a wealthy magnate. Everything returned to the moment Yuichi eliminated Shiba Taizen. In a panic, Yuka told Yuichi that she was carrying his teacher's child. Unfortunately, this lie was soon exposed by Yuichi. Having no other choice, Yuka admitted that it was Masakazu's child, the man she loved most. However, young Yuichi still didn't believe this was the truth. The reality was that Yuka loved Masakazu, but she loved his money. Initially, she intended to marry Masakazu, but ultimately, being his lover proved more convenient. Even Yuka's teaching that friends are more important than money meant nothing. To her, money was always more important than anything else. She wanted to give birth to this child so she could extract resources from the Shibe family and maintain her image as a mother. Yuichi took Yuka's life in that moment. He slowly opened his eyes, proving his choice that friends are more important than money was correct. His Class C friends never abandoned him. And that was the entire emotional journey of Tomodachi Game. Surely, through this story, we have understood the true value of friendship compared to the terrifying allure of money. Nevertheless, the story of Yuichi and his friends is the most beautiful affirmation of the maxim throughout the series. Friends are always more important than money. We hope that after watching our video, you will cherish your comrades who have shared close bonds with you even more. Due to the extensive content of the series, there might be some errors or missed details in the video. Please provide your feedback by leaving comments below. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss our latest videos. Thank you for watching until the end. See you all in the next videos.